All set.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Education at 6:03 p.m. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call. Ms. Capabianca, here. Mr. Corey.
Here.
Mr. Curtis, here. Mr. Ucolito.
Here.
Ms. Fabiano, here. Ms. Hona, here. Mr. Kisco.
Here.
Mr. Manicha.
Here.
Ms. Richardson. Here. Ms. Toder. Here. Mayor Carbone. Mr. Aaron.
Here.
Mr. Barlow. Ms. Ferguson. Here. Ms. Klemazewski.
She's not here. I'm filling in for her.
And you are?
Steve Barton.
Thank you. Ms. Lebowski. Here. Ms. Schulte.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda, adding 2 items. We'll have item 7H, BCF funding, and item 7I will be the Board of Ed calendar 2021-2022. Also adding action items 9H and I. So moved. Who was that? Sue. John, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
School community session, public participation. The board invites members of the community to speak on topics to be addressed in the agenda or other topics of interest. Individuals wishing to make a comment must state their name and address at the beginning of their comment. The board will not allow comments regarding specific staff members, parents, students, or personal grievances. Courtesy is expected in the limited public forum. The participating time will be limited to 3 minutes per person and 10 minutes overall to guarantee efficient operation of the entire meeting. Liz Patterson, just come right up to the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Liz Patterson. I live at 382 Charles Street. Hi, some friendly faces. I know a lot of you are on our side when it comes to unmasking our kids. Maybe each and every one of you just wants to get back to normal. But that takes action. It takes people standing up for the rights for our children and ending these ridiculous mandates. Over the last few weeks, I got tired of hearing our hands are tied and it's complicated. So I did my own homework. I spoke with the governor's office, the Connecticut State Department of Education, the DPH, our local Torrington Area Health District, and literally all of my local legislators. What I learned was the decision to unmask our kids this fall is up to the individual district. Let me say that again. The decision to unmask our kids is up to the district. But don't just take my word for it. Look at all the other districts in Connecticut already making big commitment for the fall. They weren't scared by the words requirements in quotation in the LEA reopening template. They got confirmation, just as I did, from the Department of Education that these are only guidelines to consider when writing your plan. And please don't tell me it's about funding. Aside from the 20% allocated to the learning loss programs, the American Rescue Act has no other mandates for the allotment of funds. And I know this because you confirmed it at your May 19th Board of Education meeting when someone asked that direct question. It's time to take back our schools. It's time to stop being afraid. Our children are not at severe risk for this disease. They have a 99.99% survival rate from COVID. Do you understand how remarkable that is? Do you realize that our children are 10 times more likely to die in a car accident than from COVID? And no one's banning children from riding in cars. There are 750,000 children in Connecticut. I have to look that up. $750,000. Does anyone know how many of them died from COVID? Not thousands, not hundreds, 4. 4 children with pre-existing conditions, but that's another case, right? It's time to really weigh the benefits versus the risks and put these restrictions into perspective when we're talking about that number. We're not simply talking about a minor inconvenience here. I know these masks are hurting our children. I know that these masks are bacteria infested isolation shields that cause headaches and learning difficulties and joylessness in our children. Yeah, I know that our kids are struggling and these masks are to blame. So please hear me. Do what you can. Enough is enough. Put the children of Torrington first. Stop being complacent. Don't sit back and allow the state to tell us what to do and what's best for our kids here in Torrington. Take back your district like your jobs depend on it. Tell the Department of Education what you intend to do this fall. Please unmask our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Kelly.
I am Jennifer Kelly. I live at 107 Wall Street. I have 2 kids enrolled in the school system right now. I have 2 nieces. I watch my friends' 2 kids that all go to public school. We opted to keep our kids home this year simply because of masks. That was it. No other reason. I refused to mask my kids. So with that said, a lot of things have happened over the last year, starting from the top of administration right down to my kids' school. Can't name specifics, so I'm not going to, but I'm going to say this. There's an old saying, it takes a village. I'm assuming most of you probably have kids. We all know what that means. We watch each other's kids. We feed them. We bathe them. We do the whole 9. Now, with that, my opinion is the schools as a whole should be part of that village. We're leaving our kids with you all day long. And if we can't trust you to keep our kids safe, why should we send them? The masks are not safe. These kids are miserable. My kids refuse to go to school with the mask on, and I'm not going to make them. So I got to leave part of this out because of what I'm not allowed to say, but that's okay. You as the school board, from upper administration right down, should be looking out for our kids' best interests. Not what serves your needs, not what serves the government's needs, not whatever, the kids. Now, not going to name names because I'm not allowed to, but the other day I was dropping my friend's daughter off at school. She wasn't even out of the car. She didn't even have her backpack on. And their school principal was behind her. Do you have a mask? Where's your mask? What is that? Why is that a thing? Let that child get out of the car, put her backpack on, and get herself ready for her day. So I have to go through this because some things I'm not allowed to say. But correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, anybody, I don't care. But my understanding is this meeting is because part of your funding requirements, you guys have to have stuff in by the 23rd, which is in 2 days. Now, I understand fully that COVID and all the nonsense that comes with it is constantly changing, but I don't see public school as a safe, healthy place for my kids. They did remote learning the last year, but what about all these other kids? They were on, okay, look at this room right now. I am pouring sweat. This is disgusting. And this is what our kids go to school in. And this is supposed to be acceptable. And this is a plan for government funding? No. So I can't stand being in this room. I don't know who else can. It's hot, it's gross. This is nasty. Now, I remember when my kids went to school before COVID, everything coming home, social, emotional learning, this, that, and the other. How are they doing that? Can you see my face when this is up to my eyeballs? Can a kid see yours when a mask is up to your eyeballs? No. They can't see social cues. They have no idea what your face looks like. That's not okay. And to me, that's a contradiction to all of the social emotional stuff that we were spending with our kids. Now, full in person with masks, no remote option. That's what we're given. Down the line, it could change, but what I'm disturbed by is the fact that administration, the Board of Ed, the principals, all of it, you all are okay with mentally and physically abusing our kids. They are terrified. Us parents are ridiculously upset by this. And if you're willing to submit our kids to that for government money, I'll say no more on that. But in closing, we all have a choice. Every single day, everything that comes up in life, we have a choice, no matter what. I made my choice when school shut down and reopened. I'm not masking my kids. I'm not putting them through that. They will not come back to school in a mask. It won't be in their possession. It won't be on their face. Nobody will put one on them. And how that plays out remains to be seen. They should be optional if we're being forced to send our kids back to school. And if not, we should be given a remote option. Was it my favorite thing in the world? No. Quite honestly, none of us liked it. My kids hated it. I hated it. It is what it is. We did what we did. But you, the Board of Education, and all of the other administrators need to make a choice to stop harming our kids' physical and mental well-being. Our kids should be a top concern, not somebody reading a piece of paper to hand a school district money. It's disgusting. So in closing, I encourage you, the Board of Education and all of the school administration, to not just do better, but be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Eliana Patterson. Did I say that right? Welcome.
Hi, I'm Eliana Patterson. I'd just like to say, think about when we first heard of the flu. Did we start wearing masks? No. Did we stay at home if we were not feeling good? Yes. If we didn't wear masks in the flu, we shouldn't be wearing masks now. At school, I can't stop saying, what? What did you say? On the first day of school, the first thing I wanted to do to make friends was learn about people. But I couldn't see their expressions, and it didn't go so well. Please unmask us. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone's comments. Ms. Patterson, if you wouldn't mind emailing me who you spoke to at the state and what districts are doing that, just so I have it for information purposes.
You want me to tell you also now or just email?
Just, you can email it, and then, so thank you. Recognitions. Tonight, we felt that there was only one person that we could recognize, that there wasn't enough room in the room for more than you. So I just wanted to share a little bit about Mr. Aram, who has been one of the lifesavers to our district over the last couple of years. Ed Aram has served many roles throughout his time with the Torrington Public Schools. After teaching in Brooklyn, New York for several years, he got his first business manager position in Region 10. 4 years later, he came to TPS in 1977 to become our business manager, where he stayed until 1991. Over the last 30 years, he has served in many roles and made a lasting impression in our district and our community. He has always been the one we could turn to in challenging times. He has been our interim superintendent of schools in 1990 and then again in 2008. With his friend and sidekick, Mario Longabuco, the meatball to the matzo ball, and Michelle Cook, they were able to make the Torrington High School turf field a reality. And for the first time last Friday, we were able to celebrate our post-pandemic graduation on that very field. He has been the burger flipper extraordinaire at the Raiders Run celebration and mashed mounds and mounds of potatoes for the community soup kitchen at Thanksgiving time. Whatever the occasion, Ed has always given his time freely to the district and community. In 2018, after numerous, too many to count, interim business managers, Ed agreed to become our interim business manager. Even though the agreement included Ed's and Alice's time in Florida from January to March, Ed would talk to the Sues every day and still attended all subcommittee meetings and board meetings via Zoom. As long as it wasn't during 3:30 pool time, every call was answered. In November of 2020, the referendum passed for the new Torrington High School, Middle School, and Central Office Building project. We are so happy Ed will continue to serve as co-chair with Mario. We know that we are in good hands as we move forward with the building project. Ed, we can't thank you enough for all that you have done for the district over the years, but especially during the last 3 years when we really needed to establish stability throughout the district. And you know how to add an Excel column. Double bonuses. We will miss your humor and your expertise in all things business. We wish you and Alice the very best in your retirement. Many things. I just wanted to offer you this plaque as a token of our appreciation for everything you've done and hoping that you'll still answer our calls. Thank you, Ed.
As a Brooklynite, it's been a pleasure to be here for 43 years. We just bought a house again, just 1.8 miles from where we are now. So I will be here hopefully another 43 years. You can call me anytime.
Well, thank you. Tough one. All right. Superintendent's report.
Sure, how do I follow that?
Yeah, I know. With some more tips.
Exactly. Graduation, as Fiona was saying, was on the turf field, and I talked to Ed, who got the opportunity to watch it, and those of you who were there, it was such a moving experience, especially the culmination of such a difficult 15, 16 months, and so moving to see our students right there in front of us, not with the blinding lights of the Warner, which is lovely in and of itself, but to be on our own field right there, it was wonderful. It was a great experience. I think THS staff did a fabulous job, secretaries, custodians, admins, just the whole staff pulled together. Steve was there too. Great to have you on stage. So just a real feel-good moment. Student speeches were outstanding. Staff speeches were amazing. Fiona, as always, it just was wonderful. So proud. And today's the end of the year. Last day, we didn't think we would get here. It's been a tough time, but our students, our families, our staff, I'm just so proud of them. This has been such a Herculean effort and has taken everybody to pull together, and everyone has done that, from the sites to central office to our board. Thank you so much for all your support during this difficult time, and our families and community. We ended on a very positive note. This last weekend, we also had a Juneteenth for the very first time celebration in the community. One of the members of our equity committee, Shantae Robinson, was the mayor of the day, and she spoke, and it was a lovely celebration. So it was nice to be able to have that as well. A lot of culminating events, a lot of things that we couldn't do in the past, we are now able to do, so we're really looking forward to that.
Office of Teaching and Learning update.
Okay.
just very briefly, this is kind of just to give you the status update on when we last spoke about this. As you know, we've been planning for professional development throughout the summer for our admin team. So we've just about finalized those plans. There's going to be a full week once everybody is back in district after their vacation schedules have, kind of all played out. So we have pretty much a full week planned for them to participate in training around some of the electronic platforms that we've been using for the past year and a half. Many of those platforms have new features that we are bringing some of the vendor reps in to teach us a little bit more about how to really get the most out of those features. Performance Matters is one you've heard us talk about. The STAR assessment, they have new reports that we can pull that will help us with our data analysis. We are going to do some work around systems and goal development that will inform our student improvement plans and our district improvement plans. Student and family engagement, we're going to take a look at chronic absenteeism and some mitigating strategies for that. And acceleration, which is, you've heard us talk about before, that's an initiative that's happening statewide, nationwide. And then our back to school PD for our instructional staff, our teachers and our paraprofessionals, again, around acceleration, how to use data to inform our decisions, again, those instructional platforms, how to really get the most out of the things that we're paying for, and then the mandated trainings for a safe and secure workplace that we're required to do every year. We have a lot of curriculum work happening this summer. It's happening in all core content areas: English, math, science, social studies, world language, and library media science. So we're excited about that. It's happening throughout July and August. As you know, we have our summer learning experience, a larger, really more comprehensive summer learning program than we've had for as long as I can remember. It spans July 6th through August 19th, depending on the grade level. We've identified approximately 700 students to participate. Our staff, primarily our counseling staff right now, is still touching base with families to get the permission slips and that sort of thing. So I don't have solid numbers about actually who's coming yet, but we'll have that next time. Our spring assessments are all done, obviously, since the kids are gone. We're in the process of pulling that information apart now, and we will present that to the school improvement committee at an upcoming meeting. And then Allie, you have some updates on the technology. Allie's working fast and furiously to turn everything around in terms for summer school.
Right. So we're in the process of receiving back our devices from the students for the next couple of days. We'll receive back the ones from our remote students. They will be inventoried, cleaned, ascertained, updated, and prepared for distribution again as soon as next Friday. We'll turn around 550 devices for summer school and ESY in just about a week. So we'll be busy for the next couple of days. And going back on what Sue had said, I think graduation was amazing this year. It was really incredible. We were able to live stream. We had about 160 simultaneous viewers, and it was broadcast on Channel 22. And Ed said he watched it. So we had at least one viewer there. But so far, the on-demand version has been viewed over 1,300 times by 900 unique viewers. We were able to employ, as part of a video grant that we received last year, 4 cameras. We had a floating camera up above the field with boom lift. And a total of 5 team members were able to make it a great success. So I'm very proud of my team, and it was a phenomenal experience. And as we're breaking down everything, we're putting back the building, it started to drizzle a little bit. So we got really, really lucky.
Yeah. If I could just pipe in, I ran into someone on Saturday at the Juneteenth event who lives nearby the high school and said that he could actually hear it in his home very clearly. And so the audio was,
Yeah, the audio was great.
on point. Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions on any of those original updates? Want to share, Allie? It's amazing. All the administrators, everyone, teachers at the high school that all made that come together. It was a very emotional night. First time I've ever cried at a graduation. But it was great all the same. So Thank you for all your work. Board of Education budget, oh, I'm sorry, special education update, I'm sorry.
No problem. I'll just pass these around real quick. So for, just to go over our numbers for June, I know this is the same chart that Laura shares monthly. So we were pretty similar to where we were. We were down 9 total special ed students in district for June compared to May. Our prevalence rate is staying below the state average at 15.31%. Actually went down a little bit from where we were May 1st. Laura did want me to let everyone know that next month she'll be doing a more comprehensive presentation from where we were in September all the way through the end of the year. So she'll be comparing the data for the whole school year. On the second page, just going over the referral process. This really didn't change very much from the past month. Our prevalence rate, once again, though, for students with disability is at 11.13. I'm sorry, our outplacement rate is at 11.13%, still well below the state average, which has been something that we've continued to work on throughout the year. And just some other data here, 55 students have exited from special education this year by testing out. Nice job to them. Since the start of the school year, we've had 39 children move into Torrington with an IEP. And we've had 35 children move out of Torrington with an IEP. And I believe compared to last year, we had more children move in. So this year was a little more, stayed a little more the same and wasn't as variable as past year. Just going through this real quick. On the third page, there is an elementary decision-making behavioral flow chart. So this kind of ties in with some interventions that can be put in place for students before going to special ed. So all the information in this document really pertains to general ed students. And as we can kind of see, I'll just go real quick through the steps on the right that at the end of special ed referral might be warranted if these aren't working. If we're looking at the document, all the columns on the left is pretty much the same thing if you hit that. Continue what you're doing, solely extinguishing prompts and reinforcers is successfully tolerated. So if something's working with the student to improve behavior, keep going with it and try to eventually wean them off and decrease that. So if we just start at the top though, regular education teachers are delivering a class-wide behavioral plan and differentiating is needed for their students. The next step down would be a teacher brings a concern to the student success team to discuss potential behavior plans to implement. We want to implement this plan for 2 weeks. We're going to collect data to analyze the effectiveness, and the implementation is adjusted as needed. If those interventions aren't working, which will of course be supported by data, we consult with the behavioral interventionist, the behavior tech, or a registered behavior technician. All of our special ed initials coming into play here, BI, BT, RBT. At this point, they'd ask for review of an individual student plan, and they would observe the student, collect data. This would be done by the behavior tech or the RBT. Then at that point, they would adjust the behavior plan as recommended by the behavior interventionist, continue to implement with fidelity, and collect data for at least 2 more weeks. If everything's good, we go to the left. If not, we go straight down. If interventions still aren't working, we can request informal counseling support from a social worker or psychologist. We can have the BCBA observe and consider additional adjustments to the plan. We look to identify triggers and then implement the plan with fidelity for at least two more weeks, collecting data. Once again, if it's still not working, then we'd schedule a review with the student services team, consider additional regular ed interventions, which would be a 504, an FBA, functional behavior assessment, and development of a behavior implementation plan, or potentially referral to special education at this point. And then on the last page here, just to kind of go over our elementary reflection rooms. So the reflection rooms, the first part just kind of says who is the reflection room team. So we have behavior technicians and registered behavior technicians, or RBTs. These are in all schools. We have master's level behavior interventionists at the K-5 level. And then the overall supervision is done by TPS board certified behavior analysts. We also have social workers and school psychologists contributing as necessary, and student services supervisors and building principals or assistant principals overseeing administration.
While a lot of the support is provided in the classroom setting, the reflection room is a safe place where students can go when they are dysregulated, experiencing social and emotional difficulties. So our reflection room staff, uses de-escalation strategies and restorative practices to help students work through the issues that they're having. And if the student does have to go to the reflection room, once they've been able to readjust their behavior and get in a better spot, they're safe, ready to go back to learn, and we go back to their regular class. Just the roles and the responsibilities of the behavior teams real quick. So the teams in the reflection rooms are responsible for modeling appropriate social emotional concepts. So we're establishing classroom norms, teaching and ensuring behavioral expectations, being respectful, kind words to peers and adults, being responsible, so controlling personal actions to be safe towards other people and property. These expectations we want to keep reviewing with the students on a regular basis to keep reinforcing them. We want to prioritize building relationships and connections with the students. We want to collaborate and model social emotional learning concepts within the general education setting to promote generalization. So if one student sees something, another student doing something that is positive, we want that student, really to be able to observe that and kind of, maybe try to model their behavior off of that. And then, of course, we want to guide dysregulated students to actively help them take responsibility for their actions, make a restorative plan and implementation plan to begin the healing. And then we had the chart, which I went over before this, to kind of help guide our actions with those students. Thank you.
I have a question, just in general related to the reflection room. Like I can imagine this as the type of thing where a child's upset in class, the teacher isn't able to calm the child, and so they go to this other room to have this time. I could imagine some kids really needing that, and then I could see how some other kids may abuse that, because we're all smart enough to know if I act out, and that means I get to leave the room and go play Candyland with somebody, that's just kind of a sweet deal. So how do they know, how do they sort through that? And are there times when they kind of withdraw the reflection room as an option if they feel like the child is overutilizing it?
So that could be, I think that would really be on an individual basis. The big thing is, if you did have a pattern of a student that was consistently going to the reflection room, I would think the team would really look at, well, what's causing the student to go there? I mean, like you said, there could be some students that might kind of see that almost as an incentive going to an alternate setting. But, really in a case-by-case basis, if that's noticed, the team would have to look if there's some alternate interventions that could be put in place to help the student improve the behavior that's been causing an issue, but doing it in a different way so that they weren't, using the reflection room as a perceived reward. No problem.
Any other questions? Great job. First meeting. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, Board of Education budget 2021, 2022. I don't really have anything new to update other than there will not be a joint meeting with the Board of Finance. So they're having some difficulties this week with a quorum. So the mayor has suggested that I put in writing to their legal counsel our questions. So I will be providing a letter to their counsel of, all of the issues relative to our budget. And since that's been open, we'll also be asking a lot of other budgetary questions that we've had lingering for several years. So we'll get going on that. So that's all I have to report.
Was that Wednesday's meeting?
Yes, so you all have Wednesday night free now.
Oh, good. That's a nice treat.
Yeah. So there is a meeting tonight, a city council meeting, which the budget is on the agenda, but I'm not sure what will be discussed tonight. So, Armin, Gary.
Was there more clarification on the use of various funding for capital projects and things that they were discussing?
It's basically left that the Walter referendum. I'm they're gonna talk about tonight?
Gary.
Oh, Gary and then Jill.
No, go ahead.
2% we talked about the other day. We adjust that tonight, or is that?
Yep, that's
Did I miss
the ECS funding,
Oh, ECF.
the next, yep.
We didn't mention ECF.
But who makes the decision to put it out to referendum? Is that us or the city?
No, it's the city, the buildings are their buildings.
I concur with, I think it was you that made the statement that I don't think it makes much sense for us right now to put something else out for referendum, since we just put out this multi-million-dollar school chain, building. So just for the record, I'm not in favor of another referendum to get the money that we need.
Well, did we get any more clarity on Costas versus, I forget the fellow's name now. Whether we can use the federal funds for the roof or not. Costas said yes, and then the mayor had received something from somebody else, I forget his name, that said probably not. Has that been?
Well, the only clarification we got was that that person actually worked for Mr. Costa.
So we're under the impression that it'd be best to use this money without having to go to referendum and use whatever money we're being given, if it's allowed, and take it and run. I hate to say it that way, but why use city money when we can use federal money? But we don't have an answer to that yet. We know what our.
No, so, and part of the concern is just the timing of all of this, right? So we don't really, so our plan is due in August. We've not gotten a solid clarification on when all the municipal plans will be due. So if it goes to referendum, that would be in November. But we don't really have a say in whether it goes into their plan, whether it goes to referendum. So we're just concerned about the middle school roof getting done.
I'm just as worried about if Vogel has a 35-year-old roof. And another 2 years or 3 years could absolutely destroy whatever's underneath that rubber. And I don't know if it's got some stone up there, or gravel and stone, or if it's just rubber. But it just makes once you're beyond the roof life, it just deteriorates that much faster. You strip it down to the
Is it the Vogel building or the Wetmore building?
well, building it is complex.
It's a Vogel.
The Vogel building?
That's all we have. American Rescue Plan Act update.
So just so that you have the whole documentation, we've reviewed this before. This is what we received May 10th, but just a refresher. The first pot of ESSER money was just to get us to survive. The second pot, ESSER 2, CARES Act 2, was to thrive according to the state. And then the American Rescue Plan is really to transform this, to really look at what our learning losses are, look at where those gaps are, and address those. And Sue's been updating you on a lot of the different plans. I know at SICK, both Andrew and Maureen also shared what we're doing at the various levels. A lot of the summer work is what we're enmeshed in at this point. So just a reminder that we have to reserve at least 20% of our allocation to address learning loss, and also ensure that the interventions will include social, emotional, and academic needs, and address disproportionate impact on underrepresented subgroups. So just a reminder who those groups include. It is our low-income families, students of color, English language learners, children with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness, children and youth in foster care, and migratory students. They've been designated by the state as focus groups, and certainly the funding will support all of our students. But in particular, this whole grant, or this grant application, is really focused around equity for students. So the overview just gives you a breakdown once again. The total 5% allocation is reserved for addressing the learning loss. It gives you the breakdown just at the state level. So if you go to the next page, once again, you've seen this slide before. It's all about equity, equity, equity. Is our collective responsibility to fulfill the established priorities through an equity-focused lens. Access must be focused on our pre-K to 12 populations most disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. So we saw a lot of that, particularly at the beginning of COVID. Allie and her team worked really hard to make sure that we could have connectivity for our families who are really having difficulty. We were able to give students, obviously, the one-on-one devices. That was a game changer, made a huge difference. So that leveled the playing field. So we have to make sure as we are moving forward that we are continuing with these things in mind and making sure that we have that focus in our plan. So we are already up to the week of June 23rd, which is Wednesday. And so just a reminder, I know I've said this before, the June 23rd plan will be updated. It's just like everything COVID, it will be updated probably weekly. We will continue to add different components to the plan, including any commentary that continues to come in through our reopen link. So community members, parents, staff can continue to make comments, and we will check that on a regular basis. The application is due, they say mid-August, and here it's actually August 16th. And so that's when we have to really clarify the funding. We will have to have a meeting in August before that so that we can really look at what the allocations are. But you'll continue to get updates even when we're not meeting on plans and input as we go through. And if we can just go ahead, next few pages, the little student in the corner, where it says LEA, our ESSER plan, and the districts are required to develop a plan for the use of the funds. At a minimum, the funds will be used to implement prevention and mitigation strategies consistent with CDC guidelines. So how the district will utilize 20% reserve for learning loss. And then they also include these activities: summer learning and enrichment, extended school days, comprehensive after-school programs, and an extended school year. So a lot of this happened even before school was out. We talked to you about after-school programs, extended day, and now we're getting ready for extended year and summer school programs, enrichment, as well as learning opportunities. So we are moving forward. Just reminding everyone that right now, and you'll see this in the plan, we are under an executive order until July 20th to continue to wear masks inside. That is not an optional, that's a mandate from the governor. And so we are awaiting update, awaiting information on that executive order. And so as soon as we know, we can update our plan and move forward with that information and go from there.
Just
Yes.
one question. Just, the governor's mandating this, so most everybody up here isn't in favor of masks, but if without, let's say the governor gives us no guidance up until July, but the guidance, but we don't, I don't think we plan on making children wear masks if the governor takes the edict, I say the edict, the mandate away. I don't think that's ever been just for the sake of clarity, I don't think anybody's ever said we're going to have a mask mandate without the governor's mandate.
Right, so what's happened is you've got the governor's executive orders, and
That's
we've had those, right, for a long time now. We've had those since March 2020. And so then there's also guidance from CDC, then there's also guidance from Connecticut DPH, from the feds in terms of just DPH federally, and then also Torrington Area Health. So we've worked with all of those groups, right, and taken their guidance during this time. So when I show you the plan, you'll see things in terms of what we have to respond to in terms of the breakdown of that. certainly what we want to do is we want to return back to normal and not have to worry about masks or social distancing or any of the things that were related to COVID that made it really crazy, right? We want to be able to have our students come back to school in the fall and move forward. Absolutely. So, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea what they're going to say or do. And as I've said many, many times before, I am not a medical professional. I do need to rely on CDC and DPH and governor's mandates or governor's proclamations in terms of how we will move forward. And then I share those with the board and we move forward as a district. So we will, as I said, that very last page is just about making sure that we have stakeholder engagement and feedback, and we will continue to ask for that throughout this process. Can I just go right into the next? Okay.
Does anyone have any questions on this money before we go into the other? Go ahead, Jen.
Well, I have 2 questions. One is about the stakeholder, the meaningful public input and stakeholder engagement. So if we have to approve a plan tonight, and then people are having opportunities to give feedback after the plan has been approved, like to what end? What are we going to do? Are we going to meet again and discuss that feedback? How are we going to incorporate their feedback?
Right. So what happens is similar to what happened when we had Commissioner Cardona. He never requested or demanded that boards approve a plan because they are exactly what you're saying, because they will continue to change and be fluid and be updated. But certainly we want to make sure that the board has input into the plan and can see the scope. So you will see it as it gets updated with the information, and certainly I will bring back the bigger, broader view to the board so that you can make other decisions, such as the funding piece. The funding piece is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of the board. As always, I brought CARES Act, I brought ESSER, ESSER 1, 2, and that's really CARES Act 1, 2. Sorry for all the different acronyms. They're basically the same. And now we're on to ARP, which some people call ESSER 3. So anyway, so it kind of gives you the sense. So we just keep going with it because it's fluid and flexible. And then the mandate is that we will update it formally every 6 months. And so that would be brought back in its entirety, but only for that time, because then that's likely to even change during the next 6-month period. So once we're in session, then you'll get the updates every month. So it's going to be on the agenda every month. Yeah, it's not going away.
But the plan itself, so we're not actually approving this tonight, we're just receiving this.
You're just receiving it,
That- okay.
right?
We don't have to vote on this, but we still felt it was important for everyone to see it,
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
understanding that it's gonna continue to change all summer as things change and more guidance comes out.
Right, and we're still gathering stakeholder feedback. We will meet with the TEA, parents can still give input. It's going to be ongoing. I think once it's posted, then people can give us some feedback on what's there, and that will be helpful, because not everybody answered the surveys that we put out, and we put those out to various stakeholders. So we did do a survey of staff, we did a survey of students, we did a survey of parents, but it just may not have worked into people's time frame, and now maybe it does. Surveyed for community members, and the equity committee was able to give some feedback, and that was very helpful as well. So it's helping shape some of the ideas and things, particularly for parent outreach and community outreach. So that was helpful. You were there. That was helpful to have some of their impressions in terms of really getting out into the community and talking with people, and maybe using different venues rather than just the school. So that was great. So it's very helpful. So it's just ongoing, it's an ongoing process.
It says every 6 months. I read so much up today.
Yeah.
about this, but every
There's a
6
schedule
months
in the
up to
back.
2023,
Yep.
you have to evaluate and revisit this.
Yeah, it's the last page of the
The
plan.
schedule that
I'll
was
show
in
that. Yep.
in a minute.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to understand it because we didn't get this document, so.
It was in the electronic send out Sunday.
Yesterday. So like the community hasn't seen the document.
Well, we
Right.
see it first.
Right. But so how would people have given input on the document that they haven't seen? Like,
They-
how does
through
the
the
state
survey.
expect?
Sure.
people- I understand, but the survey didn't cover everything in that document. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get inside my mind to understand how the state is really going to be taking people's meaningful feedback in when the process seems to indicate otherwise.
Okay, but remember, this has been really rushed and really, because we didn't get the information until very late.
Yeah,
So
no, I
that's
know.
why they're giving that window. They're saying, go ahead and post your basic bones, your skeleton of your plan. And then what you're going to do is you're going to continue to get feedback because it's really important to have this more fleshed out in August before you're really committing dollars to how you're moving forward. So some of it, we've already talked about some ideas at budget subcommittee. So we talked about some ideas about how we may utilize some of that funding. So the board is privy to some of that. But I think when you see the plan, you see more specifics of what they're requesting. And a lot of it is around the whole health piece. Looks a little different than the red, yellow, green plan and kind of get you to that green and a more simple, it's kind of like fast tracking that. Because the green was all open and we're back to normal essentially, except for some mitigating strategies.
And is it fair to say that people have been in touch with you for the last 14 months, telling you what you should be doing? and what they want you to do?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, and that's a kind of input as well.
For
That's a
sure.
kind of community input as well.
But you won't,
ahead, Armin.
if somebody reached out, you won't deny them the right to, or the access. And if somebody has a great idea, would you discuss it? But I'm just curious.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my
This is a
first
structure.
pandemic too, so, hey,
Armin?
yeah,
This is the exact same document from our baby, correct?
yes.
That we
Yep, I
received.
just
We talked
wanted
about
to
it.
give people a frame of
Okay, that's what I
reference,
thought. So I was
remind
looking
them.
at it, I'm like, I remember
Yep.
seeing it. Okay.
That's a good sign.
Just wanted to make sure, because I think the colors are different.
I think the other thing you really want to see at this point is there any glaring red flags that the state is going to say no to, or, this looks good, or,
Right.
because we don't want to carry on, waiting to get updates and then have them say in August, you can't, half of this you can't do. So it's good to have them have a look at it.
Because then they give you 6 months to fix it.
Right.
But in the meantime, you want to be able to start using your funds. So it's really helpful for them to get an idea of what we're thinking.
I think the other big thing that everyone has to understand is that the state of emergency has not been lifted at the state level or the city level.
Right.
So if those had been lifted, we would be, I think, in a kind of different position on a lot of this stuff. But right now, you're still subject to executive orders. All normal parliamentary things are kind of out the window. And there's been really no guidance as to when those might be lifted. So,
Just a side note,
Yeah.
I think some of the cynicism comes from reimagining schools to transform students' lives. And I'm not sure what the state means about that, and some people question what the purpose, what their intent is. I know what our intent is, your intent is, but they have a tendency to drag it out as long as they can and stick their fingers at every pot they can stick it into.
Well, it seems like a lot of people nationwide are concerned about
It's nice.
government agencies using the pandemic as an excuse for overreach in other areas.
Right.
So I
Without-
kind of had that same thought when I read that title, and I know that's not our title.
Right.
I know.
Right.
Nope.
Without democratic changes through legislatures, et cetera, et cetera.
okay, any other questions on this document before we go to the reopening document? No.
And as I said, fluid and flexible, we're gonna keep working on this. This is just, the basics, and then we'll be working from that. Uh, does everybody get one?
That's why.
So if you-
Want to make sure there's enough? Yeah, there should be. So in the table of contents, this is the template that we received. So, and so these were the guiding headings that they said you had to make sure that you have within your plan. So safe return, the next page is safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. You'll see that phrase over and over and over again, continuity of services. So we have already said we're doing 100% in-person instructional model, that we are not doing remote next year. And really our goals are to make sure that we are safeguarding health and safety of students and staff. We're monitoring the health of students and staff. We're hoping that we don't have to worry about positive cases, but certainly we have now perfected, unfortunately. And now we will have students and staff who have been vaccinated, so that will be a huge help. And as you saw, because you got these reports every time something happened, they have been lessening in intensity and number, certainly more than they ever were before. And then the whole piece about equity, access, and support to students in the community. Really, we have the devices, the one-on-one, the connectivity have been huge. And then making sure that we have communication with all of the folks. I have an extra copy here too, a couple of extras. And thank you. And then ensuring all students, families, and staff have the social, emotional, and mental health support that they need. So those are just our focus and our guiding strategies. And if you go to health and safety strategies, the very first one, these are their categories on the left, the mitigation strategies. We don't create those. That's what's part of their template. Okay, so all the way down on the left, throughout the whole document. So universal and correct wearing of masks. So basically I said exactly what I said when we were talking about ARP, is that Governor Lamont has issued the executive order until July 2021, July 20th, 2021. And then right now, mask wearing is mandated by students and staff, regardless of vaccination status at this time. That means for our summer programs as well. Anything that's happening inside. As you saw at our graduation, we were not masked. It was a glorious thing. Nice to be outside and just to have that freedom. And then I just put a caveat, if masks are required, then we will review the correct wearing of masks, which I'm sure at this point, most people are very, very familiar with. Social distancing, at this point, we don't know what those mandates will be. If there will be any guidance, you saw it go from 6 feet to 3 feet, and social distancing, we're gonna have as much distance as we possibly can, but just remembering that public schools are not created for pandemics. And we have different classrooms, sizes based on the square footage. It's hard to separate our students. We want students to be able to have group interaction and to talk with each other about the learning. That's really an important part of the learning. So we are hoping and planning that we are going back to having normalcy, group tables and the like. And we will continue to work with administration and facilities director on whatever we need to do. A lot of this right now, until the middle of July, is based on guidance from all the various organizations that I've talked about. Plexiglass will still be available in classrooms and cafeterias as needed and as the guidance is available. Some teachers may still, even if they're vaccinated and their students are vaccinated, decide to keep the plexiglass. That's their decision. I think everybody's gotten really good at hand washing and knowing all the different protocols, so I won't go over those. Coughing into their elbows, or even our littlest kids are really good about that, and really paying attention to it. We will not have sanitizers next year, but our whole, John has done a great job with his district team to make sure that they understand all the cleaning and hygiene protocols and procedures as we go ahead and move forward. And reviewing the guidelines, it's really nice that we have water bottle filling stations at every site now. Right now, water fountains are not used at this time, and we are still using those disposable towel dispensers in lieu of the hand blow dryers. And then just the whole thing about isolation and quarantine, similar to what we did all this year. And I'm sure that everybody's really familiar with that whole process. A lot of times when we had to quarantine the whole room, the room was just, the class would stay within that room, parents would come pick up. And that became basically the isolation area. School nurses still have all their PPE, and if they need any more, I know Ed's been good about supplying them with everything that they need. That will continue next year as well. We do have a nurse coordinator who was exceptional. Our nurses have been amazing during this time, just really helping us with that whole positive case, tracking, tracing, contacting, communicating, all of those pieces. We've done, I have to, hats off to Charlotte Hungerford, Hartford Healthcare, Community Health and Wellness, Torrington Area Health, for all of their vaccinations for our students, our staff. They were wonderful, really answered the call. And now really it doesn't seem to be as much an issue. They've closed down a lot of their satellite areas. That was as of, I think, last week or the week before, losing track now. They closed off the Armory because they really didn't see a lot of need at that point. And then people, it's easy to get an appointment with your own practitioner or CVS or Walgreens.
I saw at the Armory, they had over the weekend, a walk-in vaccination clinic instead of the walk-in testing.
Right.
Which is
Yes.
good.
So it's really shifting.
Charlotte will have 2 openings at Charlotte you can get, and also in Winston where they put a.
Oh, the new place?
Yeah, the new
Okay.
place, yeah.
That's good.
So that'd be good. Yeah, so I think it's just going back to the health centers rather than satellite locations. So that's wonderful. Just the special ed, I think department has done an excellent job in ensuring that our students still get their services regardless of the difficulties and the disruptions and the remote learning and the hybrid and the in-person all this last year. And certainly Laura and Steve and their team will make sure that that continues. So we just go through the variety of different services that students could possibly receive, OT and PT and speech and any of the other particulars that would be mentioned in their IEP. So then on to the continuity of services to really make sure that we are addressing academic needs as well as staff social, emotional, mental health and other needs, including food services. So they have done a phenomenal job as well. Just a shout out to Ed Advance in terms of making sure that our students, regardless of what model they were on or in, received breakfast and lunch. And it was wonderful that the board did approve of the CEP so that we had our meals district-wide free for all of our students. So a lot of support for our students, a lot of morning gathering, meeting, restorative circles, or touching base with our students to make sure that we have a sense of how our students are doing, making sure that they are in a positive place. I think staff has learned a lot over this last year in terms of just ways to find what students need. And I think students have gotten better at monitoring their own emotions, but also asking for help, even more importantly. and they're struggling. And then just making sure, I think Kim's done a phenomenal job making sure that staff really has some outlets. She did a great job with all kinds of different health initiatives this year. I know she's looking forward to having more in-person activities, which she did pre-COVID, and offering all that yoga and mindfulness and our walking challenge, which I think probably same amount or more this year.
Same this year.
Same.
Yeah,
which is
so
really
more than
good.
last year, but same as the previous year. So,
Okay, so we're getting back there.
but that's like 85 to 90% of our staff.
Wow, which is
So it's
really
a
awesome.
huge chunk of people that participate.
Yeah, so it helps remind us to be healthy, particularly at the end of the year when there's a lot of stress. And then the whole academic piece, a lot of which you heard Sue talk about at this meeting during her presentation, but also certainly at school improvement with her team, Andrew and Maureen, sharing what we really want to make sure that we are touching upon, making sure that they are working also with the student services team. So we have alignment there. And hopefully we can have the interventions. I'm really looking forward to having interventions back next year and having the interventions, teachers do intervention rather than teach in the classroom. And then you see the dates for the additional supports to address the learning loss. And that will continue. You do see that these programs will occur throughout 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. And if we can encumber some funds and then bring it even into that next year, we are allowed to do that as well. So we'll see how far the funding goes. So with the board support, we really appreciate the EL really building up the EL programs and services. Having that director, I think, will really be a game changer. We want to make sure that we have our translators really helping our EL learners and families be even more of a part of our learning community, and then have the opportunity to ask their questions, address any difficulties that they may be having. Professional development, Sue touched on a lot of this. Training will include, but is not limited to, blended learning, accelerated training, reducing barriers to student success, addressing unfinished learning, Newsella. So you see a whole host of learning that we will be going through, and I think it will make us stronger as a district, which I think is wonderful. At the very top, the whole culture responsive goes right along with making sure that we are reaching out to our families. We are aware that we have a very diverse community. Our Hispanic Latino population is growing. So as I said, it's really important that we understand that we are sending out information in Spanish, and we have those translators, making sure that we are providing services. A lot of what was spoken about even this weekend at the celebration is really just making sure that we are understanding different cultural needs of our families within our community. Sue was talking today about a great example in terms of just the testing that we were doing, the ESPA testing, and it was occurring during Ramadan. Well, a lot of our families do participate, and that's part of their religion, is the fasting during Ramadan. And so to have our students testing during that time is really, really tough because they are not eating until sundown. And so if you get to the spring, the days are longer. So that's a really long day without eating or drinking any water. And so it's really tough. So really to just become aware of the cultural things that are going on for our folks, cultural, religious, what have you. And certainly Sue will update us more on all of those different issues. So just the budgetary information that I know that I've shared, and Ed has too, the amount. And so it's that 5.9 with the 20% that must be spent on the learning acceleration, the academic renewal, and the student enrichment, which is the 1.1 million. And then really looking at those other buckets, because those buckets are what we have to show in our plan, that we are addressing family and community engagement, social, emotional, mental health of students and staff, strategic use of technology, staff development and the digital divide, and then building safe and healthy schools. So those are the 5 components that we are required to address, and we will enhance within our plan. Some of the public comment we have been able to break down a little bit because it was easier. It was a percentage, so we were able to get that parent piece, and to have 1,327 respondents of the parent survey, I thought was good. And so we had 68.4% are completely comfortable returning, 17.2 are happy to return but a little apprehensive, 6.1 happy for the sense of normalcy but wish there were more ways to protect everyone, like vaccinations required for younger students, or ways to socially distance, and some people wanted masks. 8.3 wish that remote learning was still an option. So we will pull all of that together and continue to add to the plan as we go through, but at least it gives you just a basic of what we've got at this point. The initial date is obviously June 23rd. We review December 23rd, and so on until June 23rd, 2023. And then we followed this format. We thought that this was probably a little bit easier than the other one that had the colors and the bells and whistles, because hopefully we really don't need all of that in our return to normalcy. And we are moving forward. So this is just our basic first step.
A lot.
I'll
Yeah, absolutely.
start with the budget, just we had our meeting with the city and we found out what we were earning or what we were getting. And they brought up the 6 million, but the 5,955,536 as being a number we could probably, grab some money from to plug the holes in our budget. But I'll ask maybe you can answer the question, not completely, but I don't see how we can't spend all that money bringing all these students up to the level they need to be at in order for us to allow them to continue to move forward at a pace that maybe not pre-COVID, but close to it. Am I wrong? Do you see us having any money left over?
Well, I think that there's a variety of different buckets, right? The majority obviously is going to go toward those learning gaps, but you're also trying to make sure that you are building safe and healthy schools. So you've got that whole piece that is more infrastructure. You want to make sure that you have the technology and something that is going to last, that's durable, that's truly functional in a way that we want to move forward with our grades 7 through 12, especially as we're moving into the new building and pathways and all of that as well, because that's a huge part of our. So I think it's a combination. So I don't think it will just be that, but certainly.
Well, I didn't mean
20
just, I'm saying all the
So-
buckets together.
Right. So we're utilizing that, and as we go forward, we're going to be talking about different options, right? And we talked a little bit about those options before. We've talked about possibly putting the middle school windows in there because that is a safety and health issue that we want to make sure that we're addressing, and then making sure that our computers are within this. And that's a possibility. I think when you look at the broad scope, that's the thing. We have to sit down and look at it and say, okay, how many students went to summer school? I think as we start to pull that back, then we'll see how many other interventions or programs or strategies we have to put in place for for that learning loss. So we're just starting this. And I think that's why they're being so flexible in terms of giving us some time, which actually I appreciate, because I think it is going to take some time to pull this apart a little bit.
I think we also have to get them all back in school to
Mhm.
actually be able to
Yeah.
properly
I
analyze the
question what you're
situation.
doing.
Yeah.
I just don't know how we would be able to set aside a chunk of money to cover the budget shortfall that the city has, having no idea what it's gonna cost us. Even 2 years down the road, there might be a need for 25 tutors. That, because we have still 10% or 15% of the student population not up to testing ability. I mean, I don't know how we could possibly consider that at this point, setting aside some money for next year's budget or operating. I just don't understand it.
I mean, technically, actually, we can't use that money for that anyway, so.
I understand. No, I know. I meant switching it back and
Yeah.
forth.
Any other question? Nikki, go ahead.
In the mitigation strategy for masks, could we clarify that in the absence of any guidance from the state, masks would be optional or not required? So we talk a lot about like what happens if the governor mandates it, but should we clarify if there is no mandate,
What's our plan?
what's our plan?
I think that's where it's saying mass order will follow executive orders, CDC and Connecticut DPH guidance, and will continually update it as necessary.
Only that. But I think what she's saying is so the public
And make it super clear.
can feel good about it, that we won't be implementing this mask mandate unless it's forced upon us.
Right.
In
So it would
effect.
be either by the governor,
DPH.
DPH, or Torrington Area Health, because if we were to have an outbreak,
Mhm.
we're under a state of emergency and a city of emergency. So there's a lot of people, involved in this.
Right.
But if it's like it is right now, then we won't be wearing masks. But if something changes over the summer, we don't know. Armin?
Yeah, and I think that also needs to be made clear that if the state is under a state of emergency, more than likely the city's going to continue under a state of emergency. And a lot of that has to do with funding. Because then they qualify for certain funding, so then they're going to want us to comply with whatever state mandates are for the school system.
So could we put in here, provided all those agencies, I guess, the governor and all the health agencies?
Yeah, provided that they don't mandate or,
Require it
yeah, require.
to be in session.
Or maybe could we just put like subject to review pending changing guidelines or something like that?
Mhm.
So we're not tying
I think
ourselves.
it's
That's kind of what
Changing
I was gonna
mandates
say.
or requirements, because the guidelines are just guidelines. If that's all there is, then we can
Right.
make our own decision.
Not really, though. So I think that's
Well,
where it
it's a
gets really
guideline.
tricky, because
Well, they said not right now, it's not, but.
I mean, right now
If
it's
there's-
clear.
Right, if there's absent any mandates or requirements, and it's just guidelines by everybody, including the governor, then,
We intend to go maskless, is what
yeah.
you're saying.
So I wouldn't say, I guess my point was, I wouldn't say absent any guidelines, I would say absent any mandates or executive
So,
orders.
but that's tough, because it's a health issue. So you have the governor, you have the State Department of Education, you have Department of Public Health, and then you have Torrington Area Health.
Mhm.
So I was hoping that they would put it in the hands of the local health authorities so that we could work with like Torrington Area Health. But any one of those people could tell us that we have to do that. And I think
Right.
that's where it gets sticky. It's
Well,
not.
all she's saying is that's not gonna be a guideline, that would be a requirement.
Right.
They told us we had to do
I'm
it.
just suggesting we don't
She's
use
saying
the
if
word,
it's a guideline, we don't plan on, correct me if I'm
no, you're absolutely, that's
wrong.
exactly.
We don't plan on requiring masks.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Trying to
You
get
did a
along.
good job
Trying to get
reading my
along.
mind.
Yeah, we
Think about
can look at rewording it some way. I just want to remind folks, okay, that this has been a crazy year. And there was a time when CIAC, right, the Athletic Council, didn't even agree with DPH. And so they had a huge battle and a fight. So I'm hoping that all of this just falls by the wayside, because in the middle of that, we were stuck in the middle. So just reminding people, because one entity was saying, sure, go ahead, you can do this. And then the other entity was saying, no, you can't. So, it has been complicated. So I'm hoping that it gets super clear and they're all on the same page. So that's the difficulty with trying to change the language at this point, because we're not even to July 21st. So once we get to July 21st, we'll know, and hopefully we've got the lay of the land. Because we want to get back to as much normalcy as possible. But if you've got agencies arguing with each other,
In the
it's going to be messy.
on one of the pages, it just it says at a minimum the plan must include how funds will be used to implement prevention and mitigation strategies consistent with CDC guidelines. Like, it only calls out CDC. Do we think that,
Do I think that will continue?
or just that it was purposeful in their choice of?
No, I don't think it was purposeful. I do think that remembering that the ARP funds are federal, but they come through the state. So the State Department of Education, the Connecticut DPH, and the all work together on this. And so that's part of the difficulty, because there are so many layers and so many different agencies. I mean, it's nice that they're all helping, but then you get mixed messages and it gets muddy. If that becomes the case, which I'm really hoping as we move into July, and we're really almost in July, so we should get an answer soon. I know it's hard to wait, but
I did look at some other reopening plans, and
Yep.
some of the schools were saying things like absent the guidance for such masks will be optional. I don't know if that phrasing works,
Right.
but I do think it's important for parents to see what the alternative is, or what the plan of the board is in lieu of any mandate. I like that phrasing.
right, and then that covers, I think that's doable. Because I think you're gonna have some families who really do want to keep the mask. And certainly, if they want to wear the mask, that's fine. Right.
Right.
So that kind of leaves it open. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I have a question about the second section, continuity of services. Because I was looking at the template today, and I totally concur with what you were saying about all of these things in that first section that had to do with health and safety. Every single one of those mitigation strategies we were required to comment directly on. But then in the template for continuity of services, there is nothing prescribed in there other than just that brief description. Describe how the LEA plan will ensure continuity of services, including but not limited to services to address the students' academic needs and students and staff social, emotional, mental health, and other needs, which may include student health and food services. So then in our plan, this is a very substantive section that includes a high amount of detail on multiple areas. So I guess my first question is, how did we come up with all of these recommendations that are in this section too?
So under the description, right, it says that you have to describe how the LEA plan will ensure the continuity of services, including but not limited to. So we use those headings because we had to include these and maybe add more. So most of these were updated from the red, yellow, green. So this is what you saw, and that's why we use this format. It's very similar to what you saw in the original plan that we did, the AAA
Yeah. a
the
year ago,
original
last year.
reopening, right.
And most of what you see here, we already are doing in our building.
Yeah, it's nothing new.
No.
Right.
This is just routine, honestly.
Mhm.
It becomes prescriptive though when we put it in here and when we say this is our plan. Like there's one that popped out to me, and maybe this popped out to me because there was a conversation on Facebook last month where a person from our community was very upset about a teacher at the high school sharing their political views inappropriately with their class. And there were like 75 comments on this thread, okay? So maybe I had that in my mind when I was reading this, but it says teachers will develop lessons and lead conversations with students to discuss the implications of the pandemic and consciousness of racial equality at the personal, community, and societal levels. And I mean, that to me sounds like we're instructing our teachers, you must develop lessons talking about these things. And that feels a little overly prescriptive and possibly problematic if we're concerned about, I think you toe a real thin line there if we don't want, I don't think we want teachers to bring their political viewpoints into the classroom. And all of those issues can be very political depending on different viewpoints on them. And so like I would, not that I get a vote on this, I guess, but I would like to see something like that removed, because while a teacher certainly may talk about those things as they come up as appropriate, I think it's concerning to say that they will develop lessons specific to these things.
Right, so this is under the social emotional
Yeah, right on
section.
that first
So it's really not an academic, it's more of, once again, building that cultural. And so it's making sure that, students can talk about anything that, whether it's racial or it's just the inequality of how the pandemic has hit. Certainly the pandemic, even statistically, has hit our minority population much harder than it has our white population. So they may have some different, each ethnicity may have a different perspective on, and if you're talking about social, emotional, or mental health issues, the personal or the community or the social component may come up. I think that a lot of this is related to what we do in advisory and those kinds of lessons, so that students feel like they can express themselves. You don't want to get into politics or political views or somebody's telling students what to think. This is really supposed to be an opportunity for students to become empowered and feel like they have a voice in terms of saying, talking about what's happening with them and to share so that they can share their experiences.
Can I just jump in?
Sure.
That came directly from, you may remember us talking about the units that the Resc Alliance developed. And they developed them specifically for New Britain a year ago. And then last summer, they opened it up to all of the Alliance districts. And remind me what they're called, you guys. Readiness units, right. Thank you. So all the Alliance districts were given access, and we provided professional development for all of our staff. Throughout the summer, we actually paid people who were willing to come in over the summer to attend these trainings. And then we also offered the trainings in the back to school PD week in August. The high school in particular actually really appreciated the units, and it's exactly, the intent is exactly as Sue said, to provide a safe, space for students to feel that they can discuss what they've just lived through. And these units are very structured, the resources are built right in, they're tied to standards. So that's exactly where that came from. It's not intended to be in any way political.
So this is a set curriculum that was developed by the Resc Alliance, and we are adopting it and instructing our teachers to utilize it.
It's not a curriculum, it's a resource. So it's a resource that the Resc Alliance, so all the Rescs in the state worked to develop. It was done in partnership with the New Britain Public Schools, and this was pre-COVID, honestly. It was a social emotional program that they were working on. But then when COVID hit, these things were looked at as, well, this is a great resource. We should, and then they went to the state. And I can't remember now if it was Miguel, if he was still here, or Irene Parisi actually might have been the one to say, we need to make these available free of charge to all of our alliance districts.
So but making something available is not the same thing as us putting in the plan that we expect our teachers to develop these lessons and to utilize them. I guess that's the part I'm getting hung up on. I totally get that things will occur organically and a good teacher will talk about what's on kids' minds when that's appropriate and when it fits with the lesson and when it's necessary. I guess it's just the prescriptive nature of it that concerns me.
Carmen.
But there was I guess, the mandate through the teacher evaluations that they were not to be academic this year and focus on social emotional learning. So in order for some teachers to set goals, they needed to do some of this stuff. And that was a mistake.
Yeah, I think that was optional though. I think they could opt for that. And this is something else. That's
Gary.
I can add on to that. I think when you throw the racial component to that, you're just asking for, a student himself. I guess you're talking about the student talking directly to the teacher, but whether the child, and I've asked this question in some of our equity meetings, there is no definition of what Hispanic is these days. Nobody can define it, and it's almost impossible. If you're Ecuadorian, you don't want to be called Hispanic, you want to be called Ecuadorian. And as a nationality or race, there's all when you introduce that, it's almost as if we're trying to capture some of the current momentum nationally that picks up on those little things that tend to divide rather than keep together. I mean, there's no reason why a child shouldn't be able to discuss with any teacher any of those issues, but to ascribe it to something like a racial issue rather than something that a white child, I mean, I don't even know what white is these days. It's a Lebanese child, what he's been subjected to when he left, during the Civil War in Lebanon and came over here and fought against people who had the issue of people looking at him differently than a white child. Why isn't it simply a what do you call it? A simple discussion on, or ask the teachers to draw out these kinds of things that they've gone through, whether it be, again, I don't see a child saying, well, based on my race, I suffered consequently, at least not in high school or grammar school. It's more of a discussion. I would rather have the discussion. I think the teacher would do more, would get further, finding out what it is that they've been impacted by and listening. And however teachers do it, provide them with some support and some ideas.
Which is the intent of
I know it's the intent. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying you introduce racial into that, and you're asking a teacher, the way I read it too, to, first of all, the teacher couldn't even begin to, address those kind. If the teacher's not a Ecuadorian from Ecuador, how is he going to understand or even, seriously consider what he's never experienced before? He hasn't experienced the racial or the difference in the COVID numbers, and it's complex, those numbers too, because there's all kinds of numbers that have it multiracial and Black and then non-Hispanic and Hispanic and white, but it gets so complicated to try to offer any kind of guidance to the teacher when it comes to race that I think it just adds, it gives us the possibility of facing more problems down the road with parents and teachers and students who just don't feel comfortable. And students don't feel comfortable talking about race. They don't. And I don't know that the teacher can fix that for them.
So a
But
couple,
anyway.
yeah, just a couple of things if I could just jump in. So I think we have to acknowledge medically that the pandemic has hit African Americans and Hispanic Latinos much more significantly. There's all kinds of statistics on that. But, and this was related to implications of the pandemic. But then we can also, if we're just talking about equality, you could change the statement to say, and consciousness of equality, and take out the racial. And then if it becomes a racial, it becomes a racial issue. It becomes a, you know, whatever it is, a medical,
Right.
whatever their concerns are, that could be brought up. But I think that the good thing about all of these resources and about what Sue's sharing is that the staff was trained in that, and in the utilization of these resources, which I think it was very helpful. And I think our staff was grateful to have that.
I'm
The
not questioning
units.
that. I'm truly not. I talked about certain things a few months ago, how it's going to start approaching us rather quickly in the news, in the media, in the schools around the country, the lawsuits. I think we just can afford to keep it on a non-racial basis because it doesn't seem to work that way anywhere around the country. As a board, I don't think race is something that the students should be debating. You know, there's no, we finally have a course. And I'm going to say I'm not against the course. I read the curriculum, the new course. I mean, a lot of it's really good, especially about the African American history, which they've never had before. But you know, we have high school kids. It's not a college setting where you debate these kinds of things. It sometimes brings them to the level of significant divisiveness, and you can see it in the headlines every day these days. And we're going to be in the headlines sooner or later, whether we like it or not, because that's just the way we're heading. I don't mean us. That's the way it's heading in education, and Board of Ed seem to get swallowed up in all this because we're to blame for everything, even though it's your decision, not ours. We can't blame you.
Okay, Nikki.
And I wanted to note too that we have a policy on controversial issues in the curriculum that probably when you start going into some of these discussions, this policy probably becomes more relevant. And if it's something that's planned as part of the curriculum, parents have the choice to opt in or out. So it's important that we are following the policy.
What's the policy number? Do you have
Yep, it's 5025.
5025.
Yep, controversial issues in the curriculum.
Right. Remember that this was a resource. This is not part of the curriculum. And
Not a
perhaps it should just say teachers may lead conversations, because honestly, some teachers are looking for permission to
Yeah.
do so because
I
of
agree.
the controversial nature of some of this. But at the high school level in particular, if kids come into class wanting that opportunity, we want to be able to let our staff know that we support them in that endeavor, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you're gonna make
I
it
like that.
teachers may, and then take out
Take out the word
racial and
racial.
just make it consciousness of equality at
Yes.
the personal, community, and social levels. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Any other questions on the document?
I guess, are we?
John? John, go ahead.
I have a fundamental question. Is there any discussion that we are maybe turning these kids into snowflakes by validating their emotions and their feelings? Or are we just accepting that? Have we gone so far that that's just a part of what we do and who we are?
Johnny, it's a mandate coming from the state.
But
That
that's why I
has
said, is
to
there any
be a part
discussion
of this.
about it? I mean, I know it's a mandate from the state, but is anybody saying this is maybe really bad for kids?
I don't think
That's
so.
probably a
Well,
yes
I
or no
think-
answer.
Well, I don't
Well, you
think so.
hear
I
on
think
the
it's
paid
pretty
calls every
complex.
Well, but I'm asking from the superintendent's, from the point of view of this document. I mean, every school system in the state's going to have a document like this, and it's going to just accept that, yes, we need to validate every feeling these kids have and tell them that that's more important than what they know. What you feel is more important than what you know. Because we're telling teachers, they
I
were
don't
told
think
beginning
it's
of
more
this school
important,
year.
But I think it is equally as important for these students coming out of this pandemic, because I think students are coming from a variety of different experiences, and I can't begin to guess what's happened in their household, if they've suffered loss or, death, or their parents have lost jobs, or They've had to become the babysitter for the younger children. I don't know what's happened, but I think it's really important to give students an avenue to express whatever has gone on, and to have a person at the schools who can listen and address that, or help them find supports, or meet with them on a regular basis, or whatever it is, depending on the role of that staff member at the school. Because I think this has been a really difficult time for our students as well as for our staff.
Okay, so we got through World War II without needing any of this, but now we've turned these kids into such little, there are several words I could use but won't, but we've weakened them to the extent that we need to deal with this for them or help them.
I just think, some of this is a philosophical.
That's exactly
issue,
what I was asking you. Is
certainly,
there any
and
philosophical?
So, John, I would tell you that they probably needed a lot more mental health supports after World War II. That would be my perspective as well.
We somehow
but,
survived without it, though.
Right, surviving and
Point of
really
order, I
thriving
think
is different.
arguing with the superintendent who's
and
trying to
didn't-
present
I
a
just asked
document.
if,
It's
all I did
unfruitful
was
for any of
ask
us.
if there was any discussion about it, and it would have been a yes or no answer, but it went on.
Nick, Jess and then Gary.
John kind of read my mind. I was actually not, I wouldn't have said it like that. No, but I wonder, because I know for some kids did face, they lost a grandparent that lived with them through COVID. They had significant trauma. There are other students that their biggest trauma was everything that was normal not being normal anymore. And so I wonder, it concerns me a little bit sometimes, the idea of the classroom, which should, throughout history, has been a place of academic focus, all of a sudden becoming a counseling session. And maybe you have a child in there that needs it, and maybe you have 5 in there that don't. And not only don't, this isn't good for them. So that's what I was kind of wondering something similar, is that is there thought given to how many kids just need things to be normal, and they just need to have a day go by where they don't have to talk about COVID and they don't have to think about COVID. And I don't expect you have an answer for that. I just think.
Gary.
That's why I raised the question, how much money we're spending. I would, my personal opinion, but I'm not the dictator, or that, excuse me, the person who makes the decisions. Is take the money we have as much as we can and take it outside the classroom. That's kind of what I was getting at. So that it's not, they're so far behind. Let the teachers teach. And use what, we have $6 million. If you only plan on using $2 million, let's say, to raise the level, or to bring these kids back, and then use the teachers for the social emotional as much as they can, use more money to bring in more social emotional professionals. Again, only because I just think the teachers should be teaching. I'm not a teacher, and I don't know that they're social workers. We kind of talked about this at the city meeting, how that, because the city has no social services network, it's all forced on us. But maybe we could spend, I know people are gonna say you're crazy, you're wasting money, I might be wasting money, but take $1 million or whatever it takes, and get them and give them the professional, wrap around that they may need, rather than relying on a teacher. I think that would make more sense. Maybe you're afraid to spend the money, but I would certainly support it.
Yeah, I think just to
Maybe
focus
you can-
everybody back.
Yeah.
You can attempt to put what you want in this document, but there's no guarantee that
No, I
it's
know.
going to get approved.
Right.
So you have to stay focused, because we're talking about, is there an option to do this? But I think that there's a lot of political beliefs going around the table, which is disheartening. I think we should just focus on the document and what we would like to see changed in the document, kept in the document, and have the discussion about that. Armand, Sue,
Good.
you don't have a question anymore?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Thank you.
Armand, Gary.
I have a question about numbers, which indirectly relates to the document. Do we have a number of students attending one of our summer programs?
We will have that for you,
Okay.
but we don't have that now because we're still getting confirmation.
All right.
It doesn't start until July 12th, so.
Some of
Still
the
working on
hundreds.
it.
But
I'm sorry, Sue, I didn't.
we identified 700 kids. So
You identified
700
700, but-
students received invitations to
but-
participate. Right.
You don't have the commitment number.
We don't have the final commitment. Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Gary,
I'm gonna quote an educator, because I'm not talking, I truly am not referring to political commentary, because I could ask questions.
all I'm saying is, can we just focus on the
Yeah, but
document?
we
And if
are.
people would like things kept in the document, removed from the document?
Well, that's what my point about
But I
hiring
think
more people.
rather than going into all these things, let's just, if you have a section you don't agree with, let's talk about that section
Let
and
me-
whether
Let me
you have
slow
an
down.
alternate for it, or
I'll slow it down. You go first.
Kathy,
You
and
haven't
then-
said it all.
Okay, I just have two kind of housekeeping things. Under mitigation strategies, universal correct wearing of masks. The last bullet says, if masks are required, are
Yeah, it
required.
says it twice, I saw that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
And
you.
the other thing is that, when I was reading some of the preliminary, it talked about how it should be friendly language for parents. And when I see restorative circles, I know what that is, but will
Right.
parents, as they're
That's a
reading
good
it,
point.
understand that?
Yep.
So that was just, those are my two points of
Thank you.
clarity. And also on the next page, sorry, one more, social, emotional, mental health staff, EAP.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we need to just break that
Spell out the
down.
acronyms.
Yep,
Spell it out.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many of them.
Because there's so many, you
Yeah.
know, and so that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gary,
I think we can go through this quick, but under the first sentence, district provide professional learning and cultural competence.
So you're at the professional
Where
development.
Yes,
Professional develop, beginning of professional development.
and I've talked to them about this, and I'm not, I agree with everything underneath there, I just think we're using words that are today, doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on, because I've got a number of educators here who are on the left that don't like certain kinds of language because it ascribes to certain things. And that's not political, that's just, how you interpret it. There's the cultural competence pedagogy that is something that's catching on, and there's a lot of data on it. And there's Georgetown has a whole, department on it, but unless we can define that, then I'm not so sure we should label it that. Because the definition of both those is so varied depending on who's defining it. In some cases, it's very negative. In other cases, it makes perfect sense. But
Gary, I don't mean to cut you off, but we have a super long
Well, you asked-
agenda.
you
and
told me
it's
to bring
8.
something
No, I'm
up that
just
I was
asking,
disagreeing
what in the document would you like to see different?
well, I can give you an idea of what an educator from Wellesley is.
Gary, I'm sorry, but
I'll
maybe
read what
you
he
can
says.
send that
No,
to
no,
the
no,
board?
exactly.
Oh, what?
How would you like?
How would
What
you
in
like
the
to-
document
I'm
would
gonna
you
give you an
like?
example.
Do you want to just take
No.
that?
No, no, no.
What
from the-
wording do you
from
want
the
instead of
document.
this word?
That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it.
Okay, what is?
So which piece are you
The
referring to?
first sentence, cultural competence and cultural responsive practices. Because I don't know what that is.
Okay, so
So that's a
So what
question.
do you want to change to? I just want to tell you, give you a frame of reference, because in the Connecticut Leader Evaluation and Support Rubric 2017, because it hasn't been updated, in Domain 4 under Culture and Climate, it's just pulled from that because it's under Equitable and Ethical Practice 4.3, maintains a focus on ethical decisions, cultural competencies, social justice, inclusive practice for all members of school and district community. So for us, it's those examples that I gave before in terms of making sure that we are reaching out to our families and being equitable, making sure that we're including them. We're aware of the issues. Domain 4 is broken down in a rubric, which really just clarifies cultural competence in school communities enhances learning and teaching and helps ensure equitable opportunities and supports for each and every student. So that's how we're using that.
Okay,
So-
and I think I'm okay with that. All I'm saying is to prevent further what may continue as we move forward. As long as I feel we're not committing ourselves to backdooring, I'll say it, public can hear it, critical race theory. And that's not political because right now it's a shitstorm. I know I'm not supposed to swear, but the country is being devolving into chaos over this because nobody really knows what it is. That we don't get too far without knowing exactly what we mean by it. And maybe you can define it so that it is defined in our plan. Because I don't think this board wants to get into that fight. I don't mean amongst ourselves, I mean with the public. And it will be a fight.
But it's
Because-
about equity and cultural awareness, so we can look at that verbiage and.
I'll send you this. I'm not, I agree with what you're proposing. I'm just saying it opens us up, and probably not, but it opens us up to criticism as to us not really understanding what the rest of the world thinks it is. That's all. It leads to some far more difficult issues. But I'll give you some stuff. You can do what you want.
Did you want something changed in that section?
No, I'll just
Or do you
send- I'll
just
send a
want the
bunch of this research from
understanding
the-
of what it's not, what you don't want it to become?
I understand everything that these educators.
No, I know that, Gary, but in this
Well, I'm okay with what's
document,
underneath it.
Yeah.
What do you want this
It's
to
too,
say?
I'd rather have her just look at just have a better way to absorb it, and maybe she'll have a better way. And if not, I'll accept it the way it is, because I don't have, other than some of the direction these educators give, and they're liberal educators. I'm not an educator, and I wouldn't be able to prescribe or detail how I think you need to say it, but I'll just give you a couple of things that these guys give. I'm trying to keep the politics out of this, because those have a political tone to them. That's all I'm saying.
and I'm just trying to keep it to the document.
Right.
And I know.
So
Well,
instead
I
of
know.
saying that, do you want to say what Sue just said, equitable and
Equitable
cultural
and
practices?
Oh, yes, yes. That's fine.
That's
I
all
think
we're
so.
asking.
That's
That's
all.
all, that's what we were
I
trying to
thought you
get
wanted
at.
me to give a full.
No, 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 no.
No.
So equitable and cultural practices,
Awareness.
I mean,
learning.
I'm fully agreement with the need for equity, and I say that over and over again, properly defined, because that's another topic that people.
So you want it to say provide professional learning on ethical and equitable practices?
I think that sounds less divisive, or less.
Everybody okay with that?
Does that
Anybody
encompass
okay
what
with that?
your
Well, we
intent?
just lose the cultural awareness piece. That really is important.
And that's, well,
So, and that doesn't have any,
cultural, ethical,
I don't-
and equitable. You can put cultural in there.
Okay.
Cultural awareness.
okay. So we'll wordsmith that and bring it back.
Okay.
I think Gary's right, because I have also heard that before, that those terms specifically are loaded language. So to one person, they mean one thing, and
Yeah,
to another person,
they
they
do.
mean something else, and it's something very specific. So I think that's good for us to.
Okay, does anyone have any other sections they want to look at, address, wording? Go ahead,
The
Nikki.
only other comment I just wanted to make was, a lot of this document focuses on once the kids are in the building, but not so much on, the attendance challenge and those kids that we aren't able to reach. And I wasn't sure if that was like intended to be outside of this document, like those strategies to really reach those kids that I want to call them unreachable, but
That's under
Right.
barriers. to
So,
student-
right, so under professional development, reducing barriers to student success, so we could pull it out a little bit more. I know at SICK, Sue and her team have gone through that's massive. So, we could put reducing barriers to student success, including, maybe do some little examples in parentheses. Chronic absenteeism.
because that's really, but we can flesh that out. Yeah, that's just the only thing that I said. I think that's, yeah, so I feel like, I don't remember if it was equity committee where we were talking about it, but how to reach the people that we
That's
hadn't
exactly.
been reaching, and it was, we were talking
Right.
about over the summer, and I had suggested maybe having the school guidance counselors reach out to the families that weren't engaged, and I think actually that would be something really good to put in here, and I don't know that would necessarily go under professional development, because that would be more a direct action that we'd be taking to reach, so that's a good.
Right, one of the things that we are doing now is we are working with someone who is going to provide, an expert actually in the field of, school refusal and chronic absenteeism, to help train all of us, us included, on really what's scientifically proven to work to get kids to come back to school. So that's where we're starting with it. So that's why we put it under PD somewhere.
Is that the LEAP funding?
Part of it.
Is that part of it?
Any other questions on the document? Thank you, guys. A lot of work went into this. All right, monthly financials. Armand or Ed?
Well, we're at year-end surplus as of the meeting at $773,897. Right, Mr. Aaron?
Yep.
So we're in a good spot.
All right, any questions? Primary mental health program grant.
Okay, this one's an easy one. We've done it for years and years and years. This is to help our students as they enter kindergarten to get some supports. And Paula Gayeske is the person who has worked with those students. They are chosen by their teachers if they're having a tough time doing that transition. In particular, this year, I think it's really important because we may have some students who stayed at home and didn't come for their first year in kindergarten. It doesn't cost the district anything. We do all in-kind services such as space, lighting, heating, those kind of basic things. We already have, it pays for Paula's time when she's servicing the students. Paula also helps with a lot of our pre-K programs, and she's the liaison to Kids Play. She works a lot with our younger population. She really has an expertise in that area. It's been very beneficial to help students really settle in, but it's also been a really nice liaison for parents as they get nervous or they're concerned about sending their babies for the first time to school. So it really helps. She's very good at it.
Any questions on the grant?
Is it district-wide, so? Is it, it says
We
it's
have
district-
it at this year we only had it at Vogel, but
Okay.
traditionally we have it at Vogel and Torrington.
This only says Vogel and where the schools.
Right, we're gonna just have to see if we have the space again. So we have the opportunity. Last year, we just didn't have the space, and even pre-COVID, it was tight for them. So if we can, we certainly will offer that, and then she will just split her time.
A field trip, All-State Music Festival, Hartford, Connecticut. In your packet, does anyone have any questions on it? Do it every year.
Yeah, it's an every year trip.
Right, it's once the kids have auditioned and then they go to the
And
festival.
then they
Yep, they
make it to
perform.
the next level.
Yeah.
Are they all set? Okay, H, ECS. We had spoke last week at our meeting about the possibility of a joint meeting with the Board of Finance and the option the Board of Education now have to directly request 2% of their ECS money to come directly to the Board of Education versus going to the city. The joint meeting has been declined. They was not going to be able to get a quorum, and then there was some issue of they don't do subcommittees. So at the end of the day, I don't believe the joint meeting is going to happen. So there does not appear that there'll be an opportunity within the next couple of weeks to get together and discuss our budget concerns. So we had talked last week that we would bring this back forward because we would have to notify City Council that we are going to ask the state for our 2% directly. And then we would have to notify the state by the end of June that we're requesting our 2% directly. So we had talked about this last week, so I'm bringing it back in case we wish to take action. We will not be having a meeting Wednesday, so this would be our only opportunity to discuss this. Questions? John?
I would just like to point out that it's not for lack of your trying to find alternative dates to the one that they shot down at first either.
Right.
Because there's been a lot of back and forth, and it's always, can we do? And the answer comes back, no, we can't.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I agree with John. I think we need to move forward. I think we have to, I agree with John about your efforts, and then I think we need to move forward and ask for 2%.
I agree.
I mean, I don't know how, I've said this before. I don't even know how we got here and how the decision can be made rationally to take the last guy in line and cut his budget by whatever the amount was. How much was it? That 700 something, $800,000, let's say?
From our request.
From our request. Because we have less, well, I'm not even sure we had less than what she indicated, but that's another issue that can be addressed later. But every other budget was passed, as far as I can tell. And ours was the last one that got the hammer, or the axe, I should say. And it's just, it basically is, it's less than a zero, because after inflation and after adjustments, we're getting less money. And it just doesn't process to me. It just doesn't. I don't, if we continue to let this happen, you know, and we've said this every year, you know, we have to play ball, and every year we seem to have to fight to get our money back. And if it continues, you know, the city's budget will be as large as ours. You know, we have how many employees? 738. We've got 300 employees. You know, at some point, we've got to push back hard. And I guess this is the first volley, the first shot.
Any other questions on the ECS funding? Yes. Any questions before we move on to the next item?
What is the pro and con of doing that? Like, I know we
So
talked about it.
I
I was really hoping we could have the meeting, like I really would have.
So was I.
Be able to have that
And-
dialogue.
Yeah, and I think that you'll all know that every year at budget, every year I ask, can we start having quarterly meetings so that we're not always addressing this at budget? But it never works out. So to me, the pro is at some point, we have to stick up for our students and our staff. We cannot continue to eat these increases. I believe that we have more than come to the table to work with the city every year, returning our surpluses, trying to figure other funding mechanisms to pay for items. I feel strongly that we negotiate in good faith. We want to do what's best for the city of Torrington and our students, and I feel that we acted in that way. So if there's no money, there's no money. There's no money for anybody. But I think to have your largest department get a $95,000 increase and think that that's sufficient, and a 0% capital, and promise money that we might get in the future is not money in our pocket now. So every year that we're not funded, we're constantly treading water, trying to keep our head above water. They can talk about Alliance. They can talk about all this other funding. That money is not part of our general operating budget. It is money for specific things to help us move the district forward. So to me, the pro is, for once, we are going to stand up for the kids and the staff in this community that deserve to have the money they need when you're doling out money to everyone else. Our kids and our faculty deserve a fair shake at this. The con is, and I guess we can call it a con however you want, but the con is the city is counting on that revenue that they're no longer going to receive, that 2%, because it's going to come directly to the Board of Ed. So the city may not think too kindly of the fact that we're pulling revenue out from underneath them, but I don't feel that providing all city departments a 4% increase and giving us 95,000 is fair either. So Nikki and then Sue.
What's the impact to the taxpayers? So
I don't, well, I would ask, we've been trying to get what is in the general account, all the other accounts that they're pulling from for all these other items. So the impact to the taxpayer would be nothing if they take the money out of where they're taking the money out to pay for all these other things.
But isn't the budget already locked? Didn't they already approve all the budgets?
It doesn't, but they approved it on the basis that they're receiving 100% of the EC.
They could just go into the reserve.
They have to go into the reserve.
It's not that complicated. And that's happens every year. If they go into it, the fund balance, numerous times throughout the year. for all
And I
kinds of
sent you the list of how much they go into the contingency every year by year to
Oh,
pull
that's-
money.
Mhm.
So that's what would happen.
And
And then Armin, sorry.
I think the important thing to hone in on, and you have, is that what we're doing is looking out for the children of Torrington.
Mhm.
And that's what's most important. And it's almost like a slap in the face that we got $95,000 and a 0% capital. It was very misleading going into that meeting, and I agree with everything that you're doing to get that UCF money.
Armin,
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting, but going back to Nikki's point about where they're gonna get the money. And I think you said there was $18 million in the fund balance.
Correct.
And then there's how much in the insurance fund?
9 million.
So there's 18 million and 9 million, right? Approximately.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gary,
Nick, to your question, to your point, if we don't get it this year, the city has a surplus, which they won't tell us what it is, but it's gotta be bigger than ours. And they have their CARES money, which they don't tell us where they spend it, but they have our line items. The city had a 2% increase in the grant list, and they're giving 4% to the rest of the departments. If we can't get an increase this year, we will never get an increase next year.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. So if we don't start fighting for something, we'll get that. And that's what we've been getting for the last 4 years. I mean, capital zero. What if the mayor doesn't win the election and and there is no referendum? Who's gonna pay for the roof? I mean, it could be 2 years before we get a referendum, or it's finalized, or the bonds are completed. And if she loses, it's another year. And then we're spending we do it over and over again. We didn't approve the full roof for middle school. It wasn't her, I don't think. I don't know who it was, but we're gonna spend twice as much to do the roof because we didn't do it all at one time. We would have increased the bond by what, $800,000? Instead, we're gonna spend probably by the time we're done $1.5 million, $1.8 million. We have to put our stakes in the ground, and because every year we say don't fight. And every year we get less and less.
Nikki,
I think the only thing is when we went through the, I don't know, ed spreadsheets at the budget meeting, outside of the roofs going to referendum, I mean, we were accounting for kind of everything that we asked for, or everything that was like in our budget.
I need to clarify that,
Okay.
Nikki. I thought we clarified this last week. What was on that list was when we were asked to come to the city because we had to figure out some strategies because the city had no money. So as usual, we step to the table and say, well, maybe we can try to figure out this if we move this to this. None of those things were anything we wanted to do. But if we try to move this and this, we can work with the city. You know what we got? They originally started at 14%, went down to 10, went down to 7, and they're at a 4% increase. What are they giving to the table? Just because we're larger, we can't always be looked at, well, they're not getting any money. We can't take all the sacrifices. I will continue to say the minute that the city council approves our contractual increases, we should always at least get our contractual increases when there's money to be had. So coming to the table, Ed didn't offer that up because that wasn't part of our budget. It was offered because we were all going to have common sacrifices. It's not a common sacrifice when every department in the city gets over 4%, which I'm not actually sure if it's every department in the city because the budget is still not available to the public. But so there's a difference between coming to the table for shared sacrifices and being taken advantage of.
Well, and as a negotiator, some will look at that as a setup. And it's true. I mean, I negotiate all the time. It's a setup. You can look at it that way. And it's happened before, and it has to stop. I mean, we need to provide the resources necessary to educate the children in a manner that at least is competitive with our surrounding communities. We don't even comply.
Clarify my point, though.
Go ahead,
I think my
Vicki.
point was just what we put into the budget, we're getting outside of.
We're not
the-
getting what we put into the budget that we,
No,
but how do
we're
you
not.
think we're getting what we request?
The only thing that we didn't cover with other funds was the roofs that they suggested, in their plan suggested that they went to the referenda.
The roofs, the capital,
Yeah, the capital, we got 0%.
the capital. We
Yeah, but
didn't,
we funded that, we're funding that through other channels
Well-
outside of the roof.
No, that,
Not the technology wasn't part of the city is ARPA. I mean, I felt
No,
like when we saw
because-
that spreadsheet, maybe,
that wasn't set in stone, because the information that was received by the city was different than what we received.
just on the roofs though, I didn't think we talked
No,
about
it was about
technology.
no,
Because when we went through it, it sounded like we were, I don't have the paper right in front of me, but it sounded like everything had a line item outside of the roofs and referendum. So what else was I missing then?
Well, they were supposed to pay, when we met with the mayor, she agreed to pay for the EL paras. She agreed to pay for the computers, and she was checking on the metal roof, because she was looking at the Federal Register, and we were looking at what Costa sent us.
Right,
So
yeah, there was that confusion. So what are,
we went in there at the meeting, myself, Sue, and Fiona, and she had Alice there. We came up with the idea that we would help the city, as we've done in the last 3 years, with our surplus for them. They asked us last year for a surplus, we gave it to them. The year before, they asked for a surplus, we didn't have that much, but we gave it to them. Again, our surplus and our expenditures were 54% of the actual surplus that the city has had. So I think we've gone overboard, and we've tried to work with them. And then on a Monday, we met on a Wednesday. I said, I'll give you the thing on Friday. She said, wait till Monday. No, I gave it to her on Thursday. Monday afternoon, all bets were off. We can't agree because it's not in there, but it is. We went to the state. The number 2 man, I thought he was 3, he's number 2, and told us, yes, you can do it. And we have that paperwork. You saw it, what he said.
clarify what we're not getting, just, I think.
Well, we're not
So
getting,
there's-
we don't know if we're getting the computers. That's why we want to have the meeting. We don't know what we're doing with the metal roof.
Yeah.
Because they could put that in their thing. So
and
that's why we wanted the meeting with the Board of Finance.
and the other thing, just for clarification, our budget for this year was approved as one line item. So what we spend our budget on this year, we could do. We never go at the end of the year and go on a shopping spree and buy all the stuff. We always, in good faith, return the money. So the items that we're purchasing, the city is not giving us $454,000 for those items. We could have done it ourselves.
Which
We're
I think
trying
the budget
to-
committee was suggesting the whole time is how we gonna use those funds, can we
Yeah.
use those
Right.
funds? We wanna
But
use
we're
it for
trying
capital.
to work with the city for what's better for everybody. So,
because.
but
because
so we didn't get $454,000. We're paying for
ours
some
to
of
begin
our
with.
items this year that's in our budget for next year.
And
We're
since
still-
September, you've seen we haven't hidden any surplus.
No,
Surplus was
Where's the
out
city
there.
surplus, do you know?
Well, wait, I had a question. about
And,
that.
and just let you know, the letter I sent, 2 things. One, the way I found about their budget, it was in the Waterbury paper. That's the only way you can see their budget. It's in the Waterbury paper over the weekend. Okay.
must have FOI'd it.
Yeah. So the other thing was, and I just forgot my answer.
Go ahead.
Fiona, I just have a question, a clarifying question. So, are they allowing us to keep at least some of our surplus?
Well,
Is that
that's what I
what
was
you're
remembering.
saying?
I sent them a
Yeah,
letter
that's what-
on June 17th. During the Board of Finance meeting held on June 15th, it was proposed to transfer Board of Ed capital projects from the capital budget 21-22 to the Board of Ed 2021 budget surplus. The following project will be transferred from the Board of Ed surplus of 2021 into the capital reserve. Those purchase orders are being typed tomorrow, going right into our reserve.
Okay, so how much is it?
544,000.
All right, and then, so what do we have left?
Well,
We'll have about 170,000 or 200,000.
How much?
About 170, 200,000.
Okay.
Wasn't her intent to take 400 from us and give it back to us?
Yeah,
Is
but-
that how,
Yes, but,
is that how she
correct, but,
circumvented the process?
correct, but the purchase orders being typed.
No, we have to do that. I'm saying, she was giving us our money, she was gonna take our money and give it back to us. That was part of the plan. That's not funding, that's us funding it.
We're funding this.
No, nothing else.
Any other questions? So. Now, if for some reason, after we do all the necessary negotiations and they want to come to the table and have a joint meeting, then maybe we consider at any point we could tell them, but in the absence of the willingness of the importance of this to come together and have a meeting, I don't see how we have any other choice. Do you have a question?
No, just a comment. I agree, and I would feel differently probably if it wasn't for the roofs having to go to referendum. But that really concerns me. I don't know what we're gonna do if that doesn't pass, and that's not something that you can just, it's not a superfluous purchase. It's something that we need for the integrity of our building for students' sake. So that's what's pushing me over the edge towards.
And it's 2 roofs, not 1 roof. That even makes it doubly concerning.
And not for nothing, but the city owns the buildings, and the fact that we have to beg to get roofs put on has to stop. Sue, and then Nikki?
I feel like what it's gonna come down to is if it does go to referendum is the city is going to look at the Board of Ed as a bunch of buffoons, because why didn't you get this during budget time? Or why didn't you think of this sooner? It's gonna all come back on us.
That's how it always does.
Right, which is why I'm so opposed to this referendum with the roofs and
Yeah.
it would never be approved. It would never be voted.
Just one thing. As a landlord, if I get a phone call that my roof is leaking, I'm obligated to fix the roof. Or they don't pay rent. We don't have any recourse. It's as if, it's almost as if we have a slumlord as our landlord. The roofs can be caving in, the roof could be, draining gallons and gallons and gallons of water. And it is on the children, and yet nobody's.
It's not exactly draining. I mean,
Well, it has over the years. Let me put it this way, do we have problems with things up above the roof? Yes, we do. We have problems with air quality. Those things should never be allowed. And as a landlord, I'm obligated to fix them, or the city or the state steps in. We have no recourse. They go on as long as they go on without being fixed. And we just hat in hand go to the city every year, it seems, the 4 years I've been here, and beg for tokens. Haven't been that successful either.
Again, we're already absorbing our contractual increases, and we continue to be penalized because our staff is working hard to find money here by savings, by doing good work. So instead of us moving forward, we just have to eat all that every year. And then, I'm getting asked comments from the reporter about all these things going on at the city council meeting tonight. It's just, now maybe we're not getting an 85% reimbursement on the school. It's got to stop. And we just have to work together, figure this out, understand you own the buildings, take care of the buildings. And if you don't want to pay our contractual increases, don't vote to approve them. It really is that simple. John?
In case the referendum doesn't pass, I checked on this during one of our many meetings about this. Walmart sells 10 by 12 blue tarps for $10 each. So we just have the little map. We have to overlap.
I'll hold the ladder.
I'll send
Seems
my
to be the
guys.
plan at this point.
I'll send my guys.
Yeah. All right, any other questions on the ECS? All right. Board of Ed calendar and all the funness. We forgot to add, we're supposed to send our calendar for the year to the city by July 1st. So we just basically took what we had this year and moved it to next year. Go
I
ahead, Nikki.
quickly looked at it to our district's calendar, and there's just a couple dates that are potential issues. Wednesday, September 22nd is Welcome Back Night at TMS.
Isn't there another?
Wednesday, November 10th, were parent-teacher conferences that night. And then just the April 20th meeting is during April vacation.
Don't we normally have the meeting on the fourth Wednesday of the month anyway? Because the fourth Wednesday would be the 29th of
For which month?
September.
Well, that'd be the fifth.
Oh, is it
That'd be
5
the
Wednesdays? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, can we move it to the 29th? then?
Yeah.
If it's conflicting with the school date? At the high school?
Change it as we go along.
Right.
I know, but I'm just saying, brought up now.
What was the November one?
We
It was
usually
November
change
10th.
Oh, that is, yeah, that's.
Is what?
Parent teacher conference.
For where? Does that mean-
I think it's the district.
We could
Then
do
you're-
September
then you-
29 for the
Elementary.
board meeting.
It just says parent conferences, it doesn't specify.
Yeah, hold on.
How about September
And then-
29th? We move it from the,
Yeah.
so
My
September would be
suggestion.
the 29th, and then,
That's elementary welcome back night,
Oh, it is?
the 20,
20.
September 29th.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, we can
There's the
try and
15th.
figure out if we can switch those to Thursday, and then we'll just bring the school calendar back.
we can't
So-
switch off Wednesdays,
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
unless
Okay.
it's a special meeting, so we're gonna have to,
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that it's not. Oh, so
On
it's the
Thursday.
8th, it's, yeah, we'll,
You-
we'll work on that, on parent conference, and we'll just bring that back to the board.
I think the point is we need something to submit by the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Right, so you
Right.
keep
We can
your
fix it
remote
later.
work hours.
As long as it just gets reposted to the site, because I think this one for some reason lives out there, because I know I've always put it in my calendar and then I'm somehow off weeks all the time.
because the other thing is we have them all at Midgeon because we didn't really, we're not sure, so we're
Mm.
probably gonna have to change it for locations, because
Move
if
the
we
site,
can
right.
go back to the schools,
Right.
we'd prefer to be in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know what we're gonna get approval for.
And school improvement will probably want to go back.
Back
and
down the
going,
road.
Circulating through the building. That would work very
Same
well
with the
for us.
Facilities.
And policy just loves going with us to go.
I do, I love traveling.
22nd then. 29th, we're gonna go.
Okay,
Policy.
so middle
I'd
school
say
is
we're there.
the 22nd, elementary is the
Yeah, and
29th.
we'll change all of those, so whichever one.
Okay, so they're gonna change those dates. So do we
Okay.
want September 22nd or 29th?
Well, if they're gonna change it, man, let's leave it the 22nd and then, right?
Yeah, no reason to change it. if we don't
Yeah,
have to.
because we can't change a Wednesday anyways, and there seems like there's,
Right, so if we
Open,
change it
yeah.
from one Wednesday to another,
It's-
it's not a special
it's-
meeting,
it's-
it's still a Board of Ed,
Right.
correct?
yeah, but there's still a conflict
There's
on the
still a
other
conflict.
Wednesday, so
Right,
they're
but
gonna
I'm
have to
just-
move one of
We're
those.
gonna
They're gonna
change
work on
ours.
that.
Yeah,
Yep,
so let's
Yeah.
just leave it on the 22nd, because it's not,
I agree.
yeah.
We'll just leave everything for now until.
So how about we'll bring this back in August? Because I think we're all, I mean, we'll submit this just so we meet it, but then we'll bring it back in August because we can also look at the locations.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And just on
Yeah.
April 20th, you probably want to just switch back to vacation.
Yeah. so April,
You don't plan on being here? No.
no, I'll be in Florida.
Bahamas?
I hope so, man. I need the Bahamas.
Oh, you mean for the subcommittee?
Subcommittee, yeah.
Yeah, whatever date that is, it's during the,
during the break.
the 20th. The 20th, that's during the break, yeah. Yeah, but a subcommittee can change any other day.
Yeah, I mean, they could do it on the 13th instead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how about we make it the 13th just to get it off of April break? Wednesday, April
Should have
13th.
been the 13th.
For facility and budget.
Last year.
Okay, so we'll change that to April 13th. Marissa, that's gonna be the only change for now. And what did you say about, well, November, you'll,
November
Figure out
10th, but
the-
We
that's
have to
a
look at
parent conference, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
so we'll just change the April break for
That's
now
just
and then we'll have a
committee
better
meeting.
idea of the
Board, so
schedule in
I think we're all right.
August. So we'll look at the locations and those two
Yeah.
other dates in August.
We could call your teacher reps. probably could-
Okay.
That's right, yeah, the teacher reps.
All right. So it's 8:27. So committee reports, budget committee?
Oh. Right. I'll do- Okay, budget committee, I'm sorry. All right, so we discussed the American Rescue Act grant update, which we received tonight. We had the COVID-19 final report, thank God. We an advanced food management services agreement, that's what was going on there. It was approved by the state. Of course, we went through monthly financials, which I already talked about. We're, we're looking good. So that's it. Any questions?
Everybody was there.
Yeah, I think most people were there.
School Improvement Committee.
School Improvement Committee,
I'm
Isn't-
sorry, Facility and Tech.
oh, I thought you're skipping.
Facilities and tech.
I'm not even in that meeting.
Stepped it up.
We discussed the security grant, what we put in for. And it was a window project update. There's gonna be, I think, June 24th, I have it written down.
Correct.
There's gonna be a Zoom meeting with the state about the window project. What else did we discuss? Yeah, like I said, we discussed the various details of, not micro details, but some of the details of the security grant. And that was the,
Yeah, and I sent out an email to everybody on the
Right.
details on those.
yeah, so, yeah, so waiting to hear how the June 24th meeting goes.
Thank you, Armin.
You're welcome.
John.
We presented the Alumnus of the Year award to Stephen Ruskowski, and that went very well. He was there and happy to be there. I had a chance to talk with both Mr. Ruskowski and Mrs. Ruskowski, very gracious lady, very nice, happy to be there just as well. And he knew everybody from his high school class in that room and maybe other people too. It was a very, very positive experience with good press, good ink in the Waterbury paper about a week ago, maybe a couple of weeks after the presentation, but they finally caught up with that and made that. Now, mark your calendars. They're probably marked already for August 4th, the first school improvement committee meeting of the next year, where we will have the middle school improvement plan. Sue, is there any chance that's going to happen? Good. And we will also discuss the spring assessments, as we've been told tonight. So there'll be some worthwhile things there. At our last meeting, we spent a lot of time on the barriers to learning. So we finished that discussion, held over from the month before, and it went well. So please be there on the 4th if you are so inclined. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Policy.
We discussed policy 1028, roles and responsibilities of committees, and came to the conclusion that we will be revisiting in August. We also discussed policy 6088, which is field trips, and again, we'll revisit in August.
Thank you. Building Committee.
Yeah,
Mr. Aaron.
we have a meeting this Thursday, just to remind everybody. We have our first career fair this Saturday, June 26th, at the high school in the gym. There'll probably be about 12 different organizations there on apprenticeship program. So it's the first one for a 10-year period that we're going to have. Mario and I will be watching them every year. So plus, remember, there'll be 4 apprenticeship programs trying to get between each year 48 to 60 students and some residents for apprenticeship programs. So after 10 years, if we have 480 students or residents in the union making money, staying in Torrington, having kids here and buying houses, it's great. It'd be great. So, yeah.
Come on down.
Yes, yes.
Liaison reports. Does anyone have a school report? Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, from Forbes. Fabulous 15 days of fun. We marked each day in June with a special activity starting on June 1st with What Makes Our Class Fabulous. June 10th, they had their field day with Summer Olympics theme. Classes were assigned to represent different countries. Activities such as javelin throw with pool noodles and swimming relays involving water sponges, cups, and buckets. The CAF staff served lunch outside. And at the end of the day, Ray Bader continued his tradition. With his band, he gave an outside concert for the whole school to enjoy. June 17th, 5th grade fun day with special activities. They had a Birds of Prey presentation with real live birds, special lunch from a food truck, and the 5th graders received their t-shirts, class of 2028. Forbes yearbooks were distributed that day. And then last week, 3rd graders from Torrington were shown a video of orientation to Forbes.
using their they're using their fourth graders only, followed by a Zoom question and answer with a fourth grade class in which the students could ask questions of the teachers or students. Today, the last day of school, we resumed our fifth grade farewell parade this year, in which the fifth grade students passed through all of the halls and the rest of the students and staff applaud and cheer them on. The staff all outside at buses depart to wave each bus goodbye. And then Mrs. Creedon, dressed up in her sun costume, holding a sign, only 72 days till the first day of school. I'm sure they loved that.
Right.
Just a couple things about the high school. I know we've already heard a few things about graduation, so I won't say anything else about, other than if you didn't get to go and you'd like to see the program I brought. The scholarship night, they gave away 95 scholarships, which is astonishing. And I don't have a dollar amount. I wish I did, but still, I think that's pretty.
I think they said it was like 70-something thousand.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds right, yeah. And then Raider Rally, that was, well, I was able to go and help out with concessions, and it was super fun. And they raised $7,000 and thousands of food items for local charities.
Great.
And I think they exceeded their goal, I believe, by a couple $1,000s, which they had kept very modest. And I think even charged the kids less to participate, just out of respect for the troubling financial times that we're in. And it was still successful. So I just want to give kudos to Erin Sullivan for all of the work and the student council that they did for that event.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve. Actually, we can remove item 9A because there's no change and we already approved it. Entertain a motion to approve the monthly financials.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the primary mental health program grant.
So
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
John and Gary,
Yes.
thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve the All-State Music Festival in Hartford, Connecticut.
So second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve the Board of Ed regular meeting minutes of May 26, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to receive all the committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to notify City Council and the state of Connecticut that the board will be requesting to receive 2% of their ECS funds directly to the Board of Education.
So moved.
So moved.
We're all on that.
And who was
I
second?
really want this one, guys.
Who was second?
No,
No,
it's
Ed
Ed
first made a
first.
motion.
Gary.
Second, yeah.
Gary?
Yeah.
Ed and Gary,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In favor, opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed? Nikki's opposed? Entertain a motion to approve the Board of Education calendar for 2021, 2022 with the revision of the April date.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Items for upcoming agenda, monthly financials, reopening. Anything else? Anybody?
calendar.
Calendar will be coming back. And possibly exploring health insurance options for the Board of Education. Okay. Comments for the good of the order. We'll start with you, Ed.
Well, I
No,
appreciate.
Hold on, Ed, Corey.
you got to specify which Ed.
Just for the last time. So
Yeah.
sad.
Really back.
Well.
It's your last meeting, so you have the floor.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, as a Brooklynite who lives in Torrington, now, I'm always available. Mario and I will take care of the high school project and the middle school and the administration building. But you can always call on me, Sue and Sue, because they do it early in the morning.
We're
or
gonna stalk you.
Yeah. Never stop.
No, I just appreciate living here and helping out. That's it.
Thank you. Ed, Corey.
Well, of course, thank you, Ed Aram, for all of your service to our school district, which I don't need to remind you began before I was born. But in all seriousness, no, I really appreciated all of your guidance as I sort of learned the ropes here on the board. I'm going to be carrying those lessons around for a long time. And the only other thing I just want to say is I'm really proud of everyone on the board for all the discussions that we're having about a lot of the really kind of hard issues, especially surrounding our budget, but also COVID recovery and masks and all of that. I think that we're doing this in a way that's a lot less acrimonious than many other boards of education. And I'm really glad to be serving with a bunch of people who understand that we can disagree on a lot of this stuff and work it out without hating each other. So thank you for that.
Was that Ed Corey?
Yeah.
Eddie, thank you.
Yeah, I have sharp elbows, Gary, but I don't hate any of you,
I know.
Short elbows lumber.
Yeah.
Nikki.
I echo what Ed said. Thank you, Ed, for everything. And it was nice to hear from parents and even a student today. It's always great when parents are involved on whatever topic we may be discussing. It's great to hear from them directly. So I thank them for that.
Sue.
Ed, it's been wonderful working with you for a very short time, but it's been great. Thank you for all that you've done for the city, for us, for our education system.
Thank you, Ed. You were my superintendent for a while. Back a few years, and I always appreciate your guidance and your intelligence in how we deal with everything. So
And even my restaurants, I tell you to go.
Even your restaurant. Yeah. And have I got a story for you about Maine? But anyway, thank you so much for all you've done for our district, for our town, and we've been blessed to have you here and all of the capacities in which you've served. So.
Well, I'm blessed to be here.
And also, I just want to, I attended the graduation parade, which was just amazingly fun to watch the kids. They were so happy. And then I quickly went home and set up my computer on my picnic table outside and watched the live stream, which was amazing. It was just the sound, the quality of the pictures, Allie, it was tremendous. So thank you for that. And also, there might have been 2 people watching it on channel 22 because my mother watched every minute of it and loved it. So, and just lastly, I just want to thank our teachers, our administrators, for all the hard work this year, and central office staff as well. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's been a year like none other. So thank you to all of them and to you for all you've done for our kids. That's it.
Jeff.
I also do want to say thank you, Ed, for all of the time that you've sacrificed, and please extend our gratitude to your wife as well. I know the sacrifice for her as well. One thing I want to throw out there, and this is not related to anything that we talked about tonight, and Gary's going to love this, is I do think that I don't know that we need to look at the cell phone policy again. I support the current policy, but I would like for us to think about whether or not a change in tone is necessary in that area, because we now have a one-to-one device with our students, which we never had before. And we've had students that have spent a tremendous amount of time staring at screens. And so maybe this year when we come back, we need to strongly discourage the use of cell phones in the classroom. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, for everything. Be together in the building committee, be great. I'm gonna miss your paper. Budget meeting, that's for sure. I'm very much a paper and pencil guy, so. So I'm gonna miss your paper. And graduation was awesome. First time outside, probably in a long time. I don't know if it's ever been outside.
I don't think so.
So, I know it's been in the gym.
Yeah, and then
Years ago, it
Warner
was in the
Theater and
gym.
all that, but.
Last year we did it in the parking lot.
Yeah, the parking
That's right,
lot.
the parking lot.
That's right.
It was outside, that's right.
So
And it was the
well, after
drive-in.
2020, I'll take credit for that.
Yeah. That was right. It was outside. It wasn't quite
Not as
like,
good.
yeah, not
Not
quite
the
like,
same.
Friday. So
Yeah.
it was very good. Excellent.
Gary.
Thank you, Ed. I remind you that about 7 years ago, maybe at Mario's house, I said, when are you gonna come back?
Yeah.
You said never.
Yeah.
Never. But you did.
You never left.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your hard work. Sue and Sue, I know this is difficult right now, going through all this with us, but as Ed Corey said, we don't have a lot of acrimony in our meetings. Even when people disagree, we seem to get through it. I hopefully we can continue that way next year.
Of course. Ellen.
Thank you, Ed. And your wife. Also, I was at the graduation and it was phenomenal. The best graduation that I have been to in the 12 years I've been on the board. It was just so nice to have it at Torrington High School on the field, and it was so casual with the parents in the stands, standing by the fences. It was just, I didn't see these. But it was great, and I think the kids enjoyed it also. It just seemed to be more relaxed, and like a celebration. So that was great.
John.
I know we're not supposed to evaluate people, but this time of the year, I think I'm going to try getting away with it. I start with Ed, and Ed is, for anyone who hasn't had much experience with business managers, the gold standard as far as absolutely every part of the job. And I don't believe for a minute that we won't see him again. I mean, he's young. Look at him. But also this time of the year, the end of a successful school year, anyone who's been in education knows exactly what I'm saying here. The whole staff, the central office staff, just absolutely working through a very tough year and putting up with us who occasionally not pleasant to deal with. We try, but not necessarily works all the time. But successful. Everything coming together as well as it has. That's from superintendent down in that central office, just doing a great job. And my final comment is it's also evaluative about the high school graduation that went so well. Thanks to everybody and everything that's been mentioned so far. And Julie Beckwith, that is so hard to put together. It looks, because it all works well, it looks like it just sort of happens. And wasn't this easy? No, it does not. It does not. And it works very well every year, thanks to her. And then the rest of it, getting it out to the public alley, getting it out there and everything. And anyway, I'm going to stop because
we gotta go home, John.
It worked well.
Yeah. We gotta go home, John.
You should talk about it.
Yeah. So I also Ed, I'm going to miss you more than I can ever express in words. We've dealt with a lot of interesting business managers in the past. And it's been so nice to have someone competent that understands the numbers. You've continued to carry us in a really good financial position. So more than grateful for that. I also want to thank, this has been such a difficult year that I'm not even positive that everyone completely understands the impacts of what's happened, what's changed week to week, and passing it down to the buildings and central office working and asking people to do the unthinkable. And we were really fortunate that our staff, paras, secretaries, nurses, custodians, teachers, everybody just did what needed to get done.
and the central office staff never taking any of their vacations, like it's not normal. So my wish for all of you is that you get some time off this summer. So relax, enjoy July. That's why we're having summer break in July, so that you guys don't have to see us here in July,
Just don't shut yourself on.
which will be a vacation.
Block Gary.
I'd like to add another comment. Also, thank you to our board chair who has,
Yes.
I don't think slept in a year and a half, along with central office. So I think you've led us competently.
I don't think anybody could possibly know how much work Fiona does.
Correct.
We each see a
Correct.
little part of it. Some of us may see more than others, but there's just,
Herculean task.
we are so lucky to have a chairman as like we do.
So dedicated.
So lucky.
Okay, future meetings.
We're still
Um,
on first name, last name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sue, go ahead.
I can't say how proud I am of the staff and the amazing, I know I mentioned it before, but oh my God, just to go through this, they rose to the challenge and just took it on, and truly at the sites, at central office, our IT folks, and the board. I mean, I do think that, you know, in spite of sometimes of our differences in point of view, everybody works together, and it truly feels like a team. And we haven't always been there, let's be real. So, you know, before I was in this position, because things were crazy. And I'm not saying it has to do with me. I just say it's very, very fortunate that now we're on uneven keel. And so that leads me, of course, to Ed. And, you know, I'm not going to say goodbye, because this is not goodbye, because that's just not even happening. And I'm going to continue to, as Sue said, stalk you and call you.
We're gonna see him Thursday.
Exactly. So, yes. So everything that you have been able to do for us to get us, and not have us, as Ed used to say to us at the very beginning, not in a sexist way, don't worry your pretty little heads, because it's all taken care of. So you know what? We appreciate that statement more than you know.
DF.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So, yeah, so I just have to say, I'm not going to say goodbye to Ed yet either, because we're going to still be around for the next few days. I just have to tell you all, I can't think of a nicer group of people I'd rather go through a pandemic with. And I mean that. We could do this, we could do anything.
And we didn't give ourselves COVID.
Exactly.
Yes, I
You know,
know.
Knock
which-
wood.
That was even better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody in central office.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Unbelievable.
I know, we were each other's bubble for the longest time.
Yeah, we were a cohort.
Yeah.
Crazy.
True.
Ed.
That's
That's where I started with you. Kim.
You know, I echo what everybody's saying about Ed, you know, and the time that we've worked together. And I promise you that every time I park my car, I will think of you.
Okay. She parked her car the first time I'm here. But, not in the right
Not a
place.
good day.
Not a good day. So I gave her a ticket.
Yeah.
After that, she parked perfect.
I have to like move it like 6 or 7 times every time just to make sure that it meets that standard. So I will make sure that I continue to do that. So.
That's why we have fun sometimes. you know?
Right. I know you're just sitting in for someone, so I won't make you be tortured by this guy.
Say congratulations to Ed, so thank you for letting me speak on Laura's behalf tonight.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. Ally.
Ed, it's been an absolute honor to have worked with you. Thank you for everything. Definitely looking forward to be working with you on the building project. And I can finally say, I know a guy.
There you go. All right, motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Johnny, Gary.
We are adjourned.